this week about the big D Democratic opposition to Trump.
Actual name is Edward Corstein, and he is a kid. He just got out of high school, class of 28 at Northeastern, but he likes to call himself Big Balls Jim. After that, it's Kyle Ray for Live Music Friday, head of a show tonight with Sheryl Crow in Concord, part of Roger Brown's Salt Lick Incubator, a nonprofit fostering careers for Boston area musicians. And at 1 o'clock, it's Ask the Governor. Maura Healey will take our questions and yours on Boston Public Radio 89.7, live from the Boston Public Library.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. Unions representing federal workers are suing the Trump administration for its efforts to dismantle the U.S. Agency for International Aid. USAID says nearly all of its staff will be put on leave, except around 300 workers deemed essential. Russia, meanwhile, is welcoming the decision to sharply curtail American foreign aid projects, as NPR's Charles Maynes reports.
The Kremlin has long claimed USAID is merely a front for American efforts to overthrow Moscow-friendly governments in the former Soviet space. And it was in that context that Russia's foreign ministry celebrated USAID's cutbacks. Speaking to journalists, spokesperson Maria Zakharova said USAID was, quote, anything but an aid and development agency, instead calling it a machine for promoting regime change. Critics of the Trump administration's decision say USAID's demise would be a gift to autocrats everywhere. The Kremlin banned USAID's work inside Russia way back in 2012. It went on to pass a so-called foreign agents law used to persecute human rights groups and other critical voices that received outside funding. Charles Maynes, NPR News.
Panama has told China that it will withdraw from Beijing's Belt and Road Infrastructure Initiative amid pressure from the U.S. to curb China's influence over the Panama Canal. NPR's John Ruich has more.
Panama's President Jose Raul Mulino says his ambassador in Beijing has already given the Chinese government 90 days notice of his country's intent to leave the Belt and Road Initiative. Panama was the first Latin American country to join the plan after it switched diplomatic recognition to China from Taiwan in 2017. Mulino said it was his decision to withdraw, but the announcement comes after a visit to the Central American country by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who pressured Panama to decrease China's influence over the strategically important Panama Canal. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian said Beijing deeply regrets Panama's decision, and China opposes U.S. pressure and coercion to smear and sabotage the Belt and Road Initiative. John Ruich, NPR News, Beijing.
And President Trump will talk with Panama's president by phone later today. He's about to meet with the Japanese prime minister in Washington in about a half an hour. More large companies in the U.S. are eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. NPR's Maria Aspen reports companies scrubbed some or all of their DEI language from annual reports.
A few of these companies referred specifically to President Trump's new executive orders ending DEI in the federal government. These orders also threaten to sanction private companies that are federal contractors that have what Trump called illegal DEI programs. And Google, for example, is a federal contractor. A spokesperson this week told me that Google is evaluating the changes required by Trump's executive orders, and Google, I should note, is one of NPR's funders.
NPR's Maria Aspen reporting. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Craig Lamolt. Legacy admissions at colleges are quickly fading. That's according to a new report from the nonprofit Education Reform Now. From our higher ed desk, GBH's Kirk Carapeza reports that since 2015, more than half the schools that once gave alumni families an edge have dropped the practice.
Over the past decade, about 450 schools have abandoned legacy admissions. 90 of them made that decision after the Supreme Court ended race-conscious admissions in 2023. Higher ed researcher James Murphy says the unfairness is clear.
Most colleges look at this and say, well, we don't actually care about this. This doesn't matter to us. We're happy to see the children of alumni apply and enroll, but they're going to do that naturally anyway.
5 states, including California, now ban legacy preferences, and at least 5 more are considering similar bills this year. A bill was filed on Beacon Hill last year, but it never came up for a full vote. Kirk Carapeza, GBH News, 89.7.
Public transportation will soon be free in much of the Merrimack Valley. The Advisory Board for Merrimack Valley Transit voted unanimously yesterday to end fare collection permanently. The system first scrapped fares 3 years ago on a temporary basis as part of a pilot program. Noah Berger's with the Transit Authority. He says that since the pilot, they've seen a surge in passengers, including kids riding the bus to school and residents going about their daily routines.
People are actually going to medical appointments that they would have otherwise skipped.
Merrimack Valley Transit is the first regional transit authority in Massachusetts to make rides permanently free. Mostly sunny today, a high in the upper 30s. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, helping NPR advance journalistic excellence in the digital age.
Eastern Rowdy, I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Thank you. We're going to have some great music in just about a half hour. Wait till you hear these guys perform. Plus, we're going to have the governor with us at 1 o'clock for another edition of Ask the Governor, taking our questions and yours. That, of course, is Maura Healey. Hello again, Jim.
Hi, and Maura Healey will be here for an hour today, and the mayor, Mayor Wu, will be here for an hour, 11 to 12 next Wednesday. So it's been another dizzying, chaotic week in Trump's America. There's so much we could talk about, but we have 20 minutes, so we're going to try to focus on a few. First, as you know, Donald Trump is doubling down on the suggestion that the U.S. expelled 2 million Palestinians from Gaza and turned the whole thing into a beach resort. Then there's all the troubling cabinet picks, some confirmed, some not yet, from Sean Real World Boston Duffy, vaccine denier RFK Jr., Project 2025 architect Russell Vought. Matt Gaetz must be kicking himself for pulling out. And finally, at least for our purposes today, Marjorie's favorite story of the week. It's this piece in Wired magazine about this 19-year-old, he's a Northeastern kid, by the way, Northeastern University, Doge staffer for Elon Musk.
Yeah.
His real name is Edward Korestein, but he is affectionately known as Big Balls. Now, Marjorie, that is right. What he calls himself.
That's his screen name.
That's
yep,
not
that's
us.
right. It's an aspirational thing, Jim.
Is that what you say? Or
I don't know what
in
it
any case, so since we can't talk about everything, here's what we're going to try to do. And since the people unhappy with Donald Trump can't focus on everything, what is the one thing that Donald Trump has done in the first 2.5 weeks that you think the so-called resistance should focus on? What's the issue? Number two, who should be leading the charge? Who's the individual or set of individuals who you think can best represent your position? And for you Trump supporters out there, please give us a call and let us know, what are the people unhappy with Trump missing in your estimation? Meaning, what are you happy about that they should be happy about too? Our number is 877-301-8970. That is our number to call or text.
You know, it just, if I were a federal employee, and these poor federal employees, your heart goes out to them. I mean, thousands of them are going to lose their job. I mean, the USAID gone from 10,000 employees down to 290 employees. People are shaking in their boots all over the place. So I think it gives a lot of confidence and seriousness of the situation when you hire a bunch of, 19 and 20-year-olds, as Rachel Maddow called them, juvenile delinquents, to go in and have access to all our Social Security numbers, to all our information from our taxes, to all our information if you applied for federal loans, and everything about these. I think there are, 24 million federal employees that are now.
I'm not sure what the number is.
Anyway, I'm going to play you a little clip because other people thought this was a little odd and a little disturbing besides me. So we got a few TV journalists here. The first voice you're going to hear is Rachel Maddow. Then you're going to hear Joy Reid from MSNBC. Then you're going to hear Jon Stewart, The Daily Show, all talking about this 19-year-old class of 28 up the street from Northeastern University. Here they are.
A young technologist known online as Big Balls.
The unfortunate nickname, Big Balls. Big B-A-L-L-S.
Big Balls has my Social Security number. Now I feel better.
Well, so do we all.
That wasn't Jon Stewart, but that was from the Daily Show. But in any case, he's.
By the way, my estimation is: have you heard one rank and file Trump supporter, the kind of people that our John King from CNN talks to, who's upset about their privacy being wildly invaded?
Well, I think individual people are. We've seen protests all around the country.
No. I'm talking about people who decided Donald Trump was the right leader for this country. Have you heard one?
It's okay. It's okay with them. And Elon Musk thinks the whole thing is just a riot about the whole big boss thing. He's putting up all this stuff about South Park, that animated TV show is a little bit raunchy, and scenes from Monty Python along that same lines. But listen, they did fire this other guy though. Where's the guy that they fired? Here's the guy that they actually fired. This was too much. The Wall Street Journal, by the way, everybody hates the media, but newspapers do a lot of great work. The Wall Street Journal is a conservative paper, but it's a great newspaper. Well, they found out about one of these
conservative on the editorial page.
That's
they're
right.
A straight newspaper when it comes to reporting.
They're in a really well edited, really written paper. Anyway, they find out about one of these guys in this band of 19 and 20-year-olds who have all your personal information, that they had to get rid of him because the Wall Street Journal uncovered that he had all these back posts on X and other places where he talked about it was a good idea to, quote unquote, normalize Indian hate, unquote. Then he talked about how, quote, just for the record, I was racist before it was cool, unquote. He talked about his being in favor of eugenics and stuff like that. And I guess that was a little bit too much for this group. But the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, talks about these young men, big balls, et cetera, as a bunch of highly trained professionals. They know exactly what they're doing. They're going to save the United States of America's overloaded bureaucracy.
It's only 11:11, and if you were taking a shot every time Marjorie says, you know what, you'd already be under the table. 877-301-8970. Let's get back to what I put out in front of you earlier. What is the one issue that you think would rally the troops most effectively? What is that issue? What's the thing that Donald Trump has done that'd be most unifying for those unhappy with it? And again, who should lead it? Chuck Schumer, I think I've told you the story before. When I was a kid, when I was a young lawyer in the South Bronx in New York City, I applied for, I have no idea why, to be the chief of staff in Washington for Congressman then in the House, Chuck Schumer. I got the job and didn't take it. I have no idea why I applied for it. I have no idea why I didn't take it. In any case, did you see Chuck Schumer? And this is, I know this is ageist, so my apologies to all of our older listeners. Chuck Schumer is at a press conference the other day saying, we will win. We will win. Now, that's going to rally a lot of people in this country. Younger leadership is absolutely necessary. Leadership with a pulse is absolutely necessary. Maybe it's Hakeem Jeffries, who leads the Democrats in the House. But who is your person who you think could lead the opposition, for lack of a better expression, out of the wilderness? And as I said, for you Trump supporters, please tell us what you think those who are opposing Donald Trump are missing. 877-301-8970. Let's take some calls.
I just want to say one last thing about Big Balls, the 19-year-old from
That's
Northeastern.
29 times.
Yeah,
in 4 minutes.
he also, obviously this kid is a really smart kid. At age 16, he started this company called Tesla.Sexy LLC.
Yep.
At the time he was about 16, that was when he was at the Rye Country Day School, Jim, a student there. That's really near Connecticut, I think, or in New York State.
Or maybe Rye, New York.
Rye, New York, right near Connecticut,
okay.
where he's from.
Okay.
Anyway, but he controls this Tesla Sexy LLC controls dozens of these web domains, and this is from Wired.com. They did great reporting on this too. But at least 2 of those domains are Russian registered domains, which means for a lot of people that are quoting these stories that this young man would not pass a background check if he were trying to be allowed to see sensitive information, but they apparently don't care. And what's scary about this is obviously that people's information could get out, that other nefarious governments could be after this information. It's pretty scary stuff, and you kind of wonder whether this was the best that we could do with Mr. Musk.
Let's go to Eric and Eastie. You're first on Boston Public Radio. Thank you so much for calling, Eric. Hi.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
We're very
Fine,
well.
thank
Thanks
you.
for calling. What's up?
All right. So I think I've got the perfect solution for you guys. Now, I almost don't want to give it to you because I am a Trump supporter. But
come on. Be generous.
For you guys.
Be generous. Go ahead.
All right. So here it is. I think you guys need to get back to basics.
Okay.
There's a little bit of an echo in here, so it's messing me up. So
we're fine on our end. I'm sorry.
Just focus on.
Go ahead.
If you guys just focus on education, security, and jobs, and that's it. It is a winning recipe. You guys get into all these weird issues that people don't really care about and irritate a lot of people. But if you just focus on those 3 things, we're going to give your kids education, we're going to keep you safe, and we're going to give you job opportunities. That's
Hey,
what
Eric.
people
Hey,
want to
Eric.
hear, regardless of where they are.
Okay.
But Eric,
Sure.
we're thousands and thousands of people are losing their jobs right now. I mean, this is going to get back to the private sector, too, because private sector people have contracts with the federal government. They're pulling away probably trillions of dollars here. These farmers that send all this, people say they don't care about USAID.
Well, maybe Eric is saying oppose those. That's a pro-jobs
Yeah, maybe.
position.
I mean, do you think that that's a good idea? I wouldn't want somebody to take away my job with who knows about severance or health care and give me a couple of weeks notice or a day's notice.
How about it, Eric?
What I'm saying is, at a macro level, this is the overall message. You guys have gotten, focused on like word police and pregnant men and all these weird kind of issues that people don't relate to.
By the way, Eric, we're glad you called. We have never done either of those things. So I don't know who you guys are, but we have never spoken about those things.
Men.
And let me just ask you one last question. The Trump's goal, I think in violation of law, is to eliminate the education department. The only people who could eliminate it if they chose to would be Congress. Hundreds of millions of dollars flows to states from the federal education department for special education for low-income kids who are behind. Is that a thing that should happen in your estimation or no?
I like the idea of it going back to the states and let the states decide.
But should they still get the federal money?
Well,
with disabled people, I support disabled people.
Eric, thank you.
One thing,
we appreciate your call.
One thing I should point out too, Eric, is that if the federal money doesn't come to the cities and towns, you're going to be paying for it in the cities and towns because the schools are supported by local property taxes for the most part, and then money from the state and money from the feds. But that money from the feds is a big chunk for K through 12 education. And one of our texters, maybe it's our coworkers, are pointing out that what Trump's side does, like Fox News, is talk endlessly about pregnant men. It's not that the Democrats are talking endlessly about that.
Well, Kamala Harris didn't talk about trans issues, but the Republicans brilliantly did. Todd in Attleboro, you're next. We got about a minute. Welcome, Todd. Hi.
Hey, yeah, thank you. In the car.
Sort of like we called you.
So I really think
Give it
we
a
need
try.
to work to flip any type of vulnerable seats, like Congressional District 21 in New York City. New York State. I've just given to him to see if, he'd have a shot to flip the Congress. We need to have at least a political majority in one of the branches.
Yeah, but Todd, you mean the midterm elections. The problem is to flip the Congress, the Democrats actually have to stand for something. And in the eyes of the American people, you saw that poll the other day, a Quinnipiac poll, the American people have less regard for the Democratic Party than in the history of the polling. So I think you're putting the cart before the horse. The horse is, what do you stand for? And then obviously run candidates on that. And I agree with you. The critical issue come 2 years from now, which seems a long way away, is to win back one house. Thank you, Todd, for the call.
One of our texters wants to know if we can add a monthly segment called Ask Big Balls. And somebody else is pointing out that where the hell, the Democrats, that's your question, Jen, the entire federal government is illegally being taken apart at the whims of President Musk and Big Balls. It seems the Democrats are asleep at the wheels. If even 1% of this happened under Biden or Obama, the GOP would be calling for a revolution. That's from Brendan and Sturbridge.
He's totally right. We've got to take a break, Mark.
Okay, we're going to take a break and be right back a couple of minutes and ask you. And by the way, some of these people, have gotten the energy department. That's where the nuclear weapons stuff is. How do you feel about big balls in charge of nuclear weaponry? Makes me a little nervous. 877-301-8970 is the number. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Live, local, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Jim Braude, Marjorie Egan, Boston Public Radio. It's here on GBH Radio because of your support. Now's your chance to keep the conversation going. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
888-897-9424 is the number. You just heard that, and the website that you can give securely on is gbhnews.org. This is one of our pledge drives. We do this a few times a year, and we do this because we are commercial-free radio. We are supported. Over 70% of our budget comes from listeners like you, people that are willing to donate $5 a month, $10 a month, $15 a month. Today we have another gift. I thought this was mine because I already have one of these fleece hats.
It's great.
These are really nice fleece hats.
What is it?
It's a GBH fleece line knit hat that we are offering today for a monthly gift of $5, and we'll thank you with this GBH fleece line knit hat. It is a really nice hat, Jim. I thought it was my hat when they put it on my counter.
Well, apparently it is now.
It's not. It's the giveaway. I got it last year, I guess. It's charcoal gray, beanie style, folding cuff, GBH 89.7 logo embroidered on the back, and this makes you a sustaining member, and we like this because that means that the people that are doing the budgets here know how much money we have going forward. And obviously, Elon Musk isn't crazy about National Public Radio either, so who knows where we're going to be. Anyway, the number's 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And by the way, a lot of you are asking, texting, emailing, you're waiting for the mug. No mug this year. Don't ask why. Just accept the reality. No mug. So this is a beautiful hat, as Marjorie said, and it's $5, which is really cheap. And I'll say what I say every day. If you're giving only because you want the hat, it's a little disappointing. Hopefully, if you're giving anything, you're giving because you love what and respect and value what our colleagues do here at the station all day long, both on the air and behind the scenes, people working really hard. And this is your opportunity to sort of belly up to the bar for a relatively modest amount, $5 a month. For $60 all at once, and you get this hat thing. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. You haven't said today, if we didn't do this, you'd have 6-minute commercials like we used to have when we were in commercial radio.
It's only a little bit past 11. Get me saying.
Give you a little time for that kind of thing.
Exactly.
888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And by the way, a lot of people who have a lot more money give a lot more. And the hope is you can do that not only because you can afford it, but because some people can't afford to give right now. And hopefully when they're in a position where they can give, they'll do the same thing, sort of paying it forward kind of deal. So give what you can. It is much appreciated by Marjorie, me, our whole team, and everybody who works at the station. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. We are live at the Boston Public Library. Fabulous music in about 15 minutes. The governor is here for an hour in person at 1 o'clock. The mayor is here for an hour on Wednesday at 11 o'clock for Ask the Mayor, obviously. In the interim, we're asking you a couple of questions, and so far nobody's answering. Number one, well, the Trump supporter did. What should people unhappy with Trump focus on? You can't focus on everything. What's the issue or the issues? 2, who should lead the charge and who should not? And if you're a Trump supporter, as that gentleman was a couple of minutes ago, what do you think we're missing in the Trump 2.0 that he's doing well that people should not be so upset about? 877-301-8970.
You know, perhaps what they need is a theme song, Jim. I think we possibly have a theme song here. It's the ACDC
Talk about
song.
Obsession. Go
Big
ahead.
Balls. It's just, I mean, isn't this
it's
just
outrageous.
crazy?
It is.
I mean, how crazy did this get? But anyway, we have the song, and we can play a little bit of it for you. And maybe this is a theme for Northeastern's finest, Mr. Korstein. Rachel Maddow, that is, put it last night. This is the team. He's a member of the team that has access to the highest security systems in the United States government. Your social security number, your personal identifying information, your bank account information.
So if Joe Biden sent 6
your health
19
information
to 24-year-olds, one of whom, let's say, was called Tiny Balls, into the one of these places, do you not think there would be practically an uprising in America? I mean, everything is so pathetically partisan. It is just unbelievable. Carol in D.C., you are next on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Hi there.
Hi there.
First time, long time.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I lost my job as a contractor for USAID about a week and a half ago.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carol.
It's a drag. Anyway.
What's that feel like?
It feels terrible. I mean, I've been working for USAID for over 20 years. And Tuesday night, I got an email that I was fired, effective immediately, and I had to find health insurance in 3 days. Not to mention, I moved down here to work in D.C. Now I have to move back to Massachusetts and figure out the rest of my life. And honestly, guys, I am in a better position than so many because I'm single and I don't have children, and I can move. But when you think of 6,000 people overseas who've been dedicated to doing this work for decades are going to have to come home in 30 days and figure out the rest of their lives, whether they intend to be cruel, I don't know, but it is cruel.
Well, Carol, you go ahead. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Well, don't go away. I mean, there are three elements to this, it seems to me. One, theoretically, we should care about our fellow people like you and job loss and health insurance loss and all those sort of things. Two, I would like to think we care about poor people in other nations who don't have vaccinations, don't have health care, don't have all the incredible things USAID does. But if you don't care about human beings, which that's fine, if you don't, it's not fine, but if you don't, you don't. The incredible thing to me is all that Donald Trump talks about is minimizing the influence, for example, of the Chinese around the world, like the influence they have at the Panama Canal. When USAID steps out of providing humanitarian assistance to all of these countries around the world, what's going to happen in? China is going to move in and put in dollar for dollar, if not more, everything we did, and exactly what Trump says is anathema is going to happen. So for all those reasons, it is one horrible idea. And Carol, we hope you stay in touch with us.
Before you go, are you getting another paycheck or not?
No.
So that's it.
No,
it's severance,
over.
no
It's
severance,
over. Yeah,
no nothing. No
nope,
health insurance,
nothing.
no nothing.
No.
And I mean, I'm sure it's occurred to you that the richest man on earth is the person that is doing this to you.
Hey, Carol, before you go,
here's one more. Hold on, let me make one more point.
Sure.
It was in the Post. It was either in the Times or the Post the other day. Elon Musk's annual income is the same or greater than USAID's total annual budget. So I don't even get the impetus. And the other thing, the whole reason I actually called, sorry for the tangent, is like, where is the outrage on the Hill? I'm like, how can Congress, who appropriated the funds every year for USAID and directs the work that we do, where are they? Why are they allowing this illegal activity to occur? I'm really gobsmacked that there's nobody is really pushing back except for a few random courts. I'm like, come on.
Well, one, they're petrified of Donald Trump. And two, Carol, to make you feel even worse, you should Google the current Secretary of State who is aiding in the dismantling of USAID, Marco Rubio. Google his comments about USAID when he was only a senator until a week ago. No Republican supported the funding more than he did, goes to work for Donald Trump and does a 180. Hey, Carol, can you stay on hold? Some of our fellow reporters at GBH would like to talk to you, and we'd like to get a number if it's okay with you. So please stay on hold and maybe give your contact info to one of our colleagues. Yeah. Carol, thanks for the call.
And it's worth pointing out that USAID is like 1% of the budget, and they respond to disasters, things like Ebola outbreaks, all these kinds of things. They've been
and
around.
do preventive work so that disasters don't happen.
Worrying about environmental things like the Amazon rainforest and stuff like that. So, and they were started by John Fitzgerald Kennedy. So they're gone. I mean, it's 10,000 workers down to 290 workers. And you know who's doing this? All the Christians. You know, the people that are running around talking about Christian nationalism, we can't insult Christians, people with the women that wear these crosses around their necks, people like J.D. Vance, who's been taken to the woodshed by the National Catholic Reporter, by the way, for his ridiculous positions, calling himself this big, serious Catholic. I mean, these people are such hypocrites. It's hard to endure.
Can I tell you how important that phone call was?
Yeah.
Part of the problem about what we do, and I'm blaming us as well as others, is we talk big numbers, $100 million, 10,000 employees down to 290, and I've done the same thing. They're humans who have decided to do important work to help their fellow humans, and there's a real cost. And Carol is the is the cost
Jim,
multiplied by thousands.
One of my oldest daughter's good friends is in the same boat, and he's about to have his second baby.
At AID as well?
That's right. He's lost his job at AID and scrambling around to get his health insurance and there is no severance pay. I mean, who gets fired with no severance pay like that, right? Well, Elon Musk fires people with no severance pay.
In any case, we got to take a break and actually have some fun for a few minutes here. And we'll return to these topics with the governor at 1 o'clock, with Shirley Leung at 12:30, and with Callie Crossley at noon.
Okay, as Jim just said, we are going to hear some terrific music here in just a second. It's our Live Music Friday segment. This is ahead of a show tonight with Sheryl Crow. We're going to hear from Kyle Ray and the Salt Lick Incubator's Liza Levy. She's next. They're next on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
So, as you know, if you're faithful listeners here, the only time the whole year we ever read anything that is complimentary about us or our colleagues is during Pledge. Amanda from Barrington, thank you for being a beacon of truth in confusing times. Michael in Tingsboro, these are all people who made contributions and were kind enough not only to do that, but spend a couple of minutes and write a note to the station. Michael writes, truth over disinformation. Martha in Sandwich, I trust GBH News more than everything, and I love Jim and Marjorie. If you want to join that group, whether you have time to write a note or not, you just simply go to 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org, and you can do it quickly. It only takes a handful of seconds, maybe a minute, that kind of deal. And you have to be careful when you say this kind of thing, but I think I speak for Marjorie. Our attitude is if you value what you get from us and our colleagues who do all this work, you sort of have an obligation to support it as best you can. If money is short, then do the least you can. Throw in a couple of bucks in our direction. If money is aplenty, then, as I said, do whatever you can. The number is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
So we have an ongoing monthly gift available here today for just $5 a month. It is called the GBH Fleece Line Knit Hat, $5 Friday kind of deal. Instead of usually being $10 a month, it's $5 a month. And it's a really nice warm winter hat, folding cuff GBH 89.7 logo. It's gray with black, and it's really got a nice warm lining. I got one last year. It's only available till 6 o'clock today, so if you're interested in that, this would be a great time to take advantage of it. We only have it, as I said, till 6 o'clock today, and we really appreciate people that take the time to donate and take the time to write about their donations, because most of our budget, more than 70%, comes from listener support. We also have private philanthropy as well, and we did have the government. We hope we still have a little bit of government money, but we don't know about that under Donald Trump and Elon Musk, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, so far, we're hanging in there, and we appreciate any help you can give us. Our number is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. We've got the GBH Fleece Line hat until 6 o'clock today for $5 a month, but we're happy with whatever you can donate if you feel so moved. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Governor Healey, again, will be here in person for an hour at 1 o'clock. The Mayor Wu, will be here for an hour Wednesday at 11 o'clock. One of our favorite musical guests of years past was this band, Tiny Habits. Here's a little sound from when they performed for us in our tiny little studio in Brighton.
That makes you older, even children older, and I'm getting older too.
So with support from the Salt Lick Incubator, they have gone on to big things. They head out on tour this summer with James Taylor. Well, Salt Lick is at it again with this week's guest for Live Music Friday. Kentucky's Kyle Ray is going to be opening for a little-known indie singer-songwriter named Sheryl Crow at the Umbrella Arts Center in Concord. Salt Lick is a nonprofit founded by former Berklee President Roger Brown, who I think is going to be on the show in a couple of weeks with Linda Mason, his wife, and Liza Levy. And they give emerging artists the tools and resources to grow into main stage acts. Now, unfortunately, tonight's show in Concord is sold out, but the good news, and you're going to agree with us in a minute, Kyle's performing on Valentine's Day at the Cantab Lounge in Cambridge. And in March, there's an Umbrella Arts Salt Lick Incubator headline show featuring 3 Salt Lick artists. TheUmbrellaArts.org for tickets and info. In a moment, we'll speak with Liza. She's the president of the Salt Lick Incubator, and Kyle. But first, here's Kyle Ray with his band performing Love Me Tonight.
1, 2, 3, 1. Honey, I know you're with him. You might still care, but I see you moving. Your hands through your hair. So if you don't love him, leave him behind. Hold out your hand and love me tonight. We can sit and pretend we don't know how this ends, but I wonder why you won't just try to love me. And it may be wrong, but it feels so right. So love me tonight. With every moment you get closer, with every song your heart swells, desires in your whisper. It's a song you sing well. Come on. And the moon wraps you in its embrace, and the stars burn bright in the sky. Well, I'll hold you close if you love me tonight. Come on, son. We can sit and pretend we don't know how this ends, but I wonder why you won't just try to love me. Oh, and it may be wrong, it feels so right. So love me tonight. And it may be wrong, but it feels so right. So love me tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
Come on over and join us, Kyle, if you would.
That was Kyle's going to be performing tonight, but the
Yikes.
show is sold out. Kyle Ray is a singer-songwriter. Sheryl Crow is leading the show tonight at the Umbrella Arts Center in Concord. But I understand there's going to be another performance on Valentine's Day that people may be able to catch.
Cantab Lounge, yep.
The Cantab Lounge right here in Cambridge. Thank you so much for that gorgeous song. Tell us who...
You going to introduce the other person who's standing up there or not?
I should be. I'm sure. I'm sorry. I'm very bad. Okay, I've lost my stuff here, Jim, so you do it for me. Wait. Oh, here it is. Liza Levy, president of the Salt Lick
Liza Levy,
Liza
you.
Levy, excuse me, I said that before. Liza Levy, president of the Salt Lick Incubator. which we've talked about before.
Liza, it's great to have you back.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
But Kyle, before we talk about the incubator and your music, just tell us who's in your band and where they're from.
Yeah. So on mandolin right here, we've got Simon Holdenschrock.
Hey, Simon.
The one with the guitar in his hand that was playing banjo, that's Malcolm Lyon.
Hey, Malcolm.
On bass, we have Ben Rachmanov. He's from Israel. And then in the audience, my drummer's out there. His name's Juan Paz. He's from Ecuador.
Hey there. Yeah, it's great.
And you are from someplace called Barron County, Kentucky.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And you're a little upset when you first got here to Boston, I heard.
Yeah, it was a rough move, man. I had to sell a lot of the stuff, everything that I could afford not to have, to come out here and attend Berklee. You know, I had to work a bunch to get through school, and luckily I've been blessed enough to meet people like Liza and people at BPMI like Morgan Millardo and stuff that have really helped, change my life and make things easier on me.
He came to town. He was a heavy metal drummer. I don't know what happened to that.
I know.
There's been a ship. Liza, for
and
those
you played bass in high school too. I mean, you've been all over the place, right?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. Liza, for those who weren't here when you were here with Roger Brown, your colleague, give us a short version. What does Salt Lick Incubator do? What's the purpose?
Yeah, we're a nonprofit organization that supports emerging artists through grants and mentorship and video shoots, songwriting camps, and community building.
And how do people find it, by the way? Is there a website for Salt Lick?
saltlickincubator.org.
Yeah, we got to take a break in a minute, and then you're going to play again. But I read somewhere, you're doing the Sheryl Crow thing. Obviously, she's at the Grammys the other night with the I Love L.A., that huge star thing. And I read that the only reason your mother is here tonight... Actually, let's not ask you. That's your mother, right, with the pink thing? You, Angela? Angela, would you... Wait a second. Okay, fine. Let's applaud Angela. Would you have shown up tonight for your kid's performance if Sheryl Crow was not paying? Raise your right hand and tell the truth. Okay, there's one honest woman. She just said, I probably would not have come to Boston. Luckily, Sheryl Crow is going to be there. So you are in luck, my friend.
Got her out.
Okay, we're taking a quick break. We're going to be right back, though, with a songwriter, Kyle Ray, and Liza Levy from the Salt Lick Incubator. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Think about it. For 3 hours every day, you get to hear thought-provoking conversations on local, national, and international issues for free. It only happens with your support, so please support your Boston Public Radio listening by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
So people that take the time to donate at 888-897-9424 and gbhnews.org, sometimes they send a little notes, really nice messages, which we love to read. It makes us feel good. Here's one, Stephen from Kingston. I support freedom of the press and honest news. Now more than ever, the truth must be made public, and I know GBH supports this. John from Charlestown, GBH is important to us, and we're there with you on a daily basis. Jen from Melrose, super important news, especially in this political world where there is, of course, a lot of misinformation. So we're very grateful that you're tuning in to GBH. We're very grateful that you're donating. As I do always say, as Jim reminded me, if you were not listening to these pledge breaks a few times a year, which I know nobody's crazy about, we would have to do commercials. And Jim and I used to do commercial radio, and the commercials are usually 5 and 6 minutes long, and they're 3 times an hour, and they're really tough to listen to because they're always pretty terrible commercials. So we really appreciate being at a station where you have the time to talk to people for a little bit longer than you usually do, and you don't have to take these commercial breaks all the time. So the number, if you are so inclined, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
You know, it's funny, Marjorie is usually one promoting the enticement of the gift. Today is a really good one. For $5 a month or $60 all at once. Are we on camera for this? I never know. No, we're not.
Too bad,
there's this fabulous gray knit hat that's lined or something like that. It's lined with fleece or whatever.
It's really
warm.
warm.
It's got a GBH 89.7 logo on it, so it's a great deal, and it's pretty affordable in the grand scheme of things. So if that moves you, and you have the $5 or the $60, it disappears, I guess, at 6 o'clock today. You go to 888-897-9424. gbhnews.org. You know, we're sort of midway through this winter fund drive, and I think it's time to start saying what happens every fund drive is we get a text from a bunch of people when it's over saying, I procrastinated, and then it was too late, the drive was over. Well, first of all, it's never too late to give. But if you want to be part of this pledge effort, now's the time to do it. Don't wait till tomorrow or the next day. It takes literally a minute, unless you want to add a note, which we love when you do. 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org. Helena from Franklin, thank you for wonderful programs that keep us well informed. Kelsey from Ipswich, thank you for keeping me informed with news I can trust. You all do such wonderful work. And you know, when Kelsey says you all, we don't talk enough about the people who are not on the mics, who do spectacular work that make all these shows popular. Our team is unbelievable. The teams behind all the people you hear on the air are unbelievable.
They have to put up with a lot, Jim.
Oh, some of them do. And if you want to support that work and ours, 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Eagan, Jim Browdy, Live Music Friday. Kyle Ray and his band are with us, and Liza Levy from Salt Lick Incubator.
You know, you mentioned, Kyle, that you came up here and you had to sell everything you own. You was kind of short on dollars. So when Salt Lick Incubator comes into your career, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, so I actually found Salt Lick last year. I did a Salt Lick session with them, which is a thing that they do that's very similar to the Tiny Desk. And I met Liza there, and I was explaining some of the needs that we had and things that we wanted to do, and things we needed money for, that we were completely dependent on, raising ourselves. And she was like, hey, she pushed me to apply for the incubator grant, and I put it off for one semester, but we came back and did it later after I felt like we were more ready, and I'm really glad that we did that. It's helped everything. So it's been enough money to help us tour in the future. So,
Liza, I should have thought of this before, but the most moving part of the Grammys the other night for me, and I hope for everybody listening, was when Chappell Roan got up there with Best New Artist and talked about how the industry doesn't support young artists like Kyle, who are just beginning, who, if I'm any judge of talent, is going to be a big star. No health insurance, not decent wages. I mean, you sort of fill the hole that she was describing. Is that not true?
I mean, I think it's tough for emerging artists out there, right? It's really expensive to do everything you're doing, and without a community and a team, it's hard to have a long-lasting career. So that's a lot of what we're focused on, in addition to the funding, is how can we help build a community and a team around Kyle and the band to just elevate them.
And how are the I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, you're a musician. Being a business person is not necessarily part of your wheelhouse. You know what I mean? So how do you even start? I mean, that's what you're there for.
Well, Kyle is actually very business-minded and has learned a lot in his business classes at Berklee. But I think, absolutely, reminding them and just helping them with some of these aspects of the business that might not be in their minds at the very first moment that they start.
So, Kyle, in a second, you're going to rejoin your bandmates. What are you guys going to play the second time?
Yeah, the second tune we're going to play is a song I wrote in Nashville back in November called The Dealer, and it's all about time and how it gives and takes, and how you have a lot of it at some points and not enough of it at others, right?
So before you take your headset off and rejoin them, how happy are you, for whatever reason, that your mother showed up?
Oh man, it means the world. Yeah, no, I mean, I love, family's everything, right? Like, I can keep her pursuing all of this and whatever, reach the stars, but like, if you don't have anybody to share it with, it means nothing. And that doesn't always mean like a romantic partner, right? There's plenty of people.
Kyle, you want to put your headset down quietly
Absolutely,
and rejoin your bandmates?
Liza, is Salt Lick unique? Are there other organizations doing what you're doing? I've never heard of it except for you guys.
I think they exist in other art forms, but in the music space specifically, it feels like it's, we've heard that it's new in terms of what we're doing and in terms of the artists sort of staying within the incubator. They don't have to stay and participate in what we're doing, but I think bands like Tiny Habits, they were just in a writing camp with us last week in LA, and arguably they're off and running and they don't need us anymore, but they're giving back. They're taking other artists on tour and writing new songs with us, so it's all really exciting.
Speaking of other artists, here's Kyle Ray and his band performing The Dealer.
2, ready?
Time is a drug, I always want more. It moves fast like amphetamine, it takes me off course. I try to slow it down, but I can't keep up. It's a hallelujah high, it's a hollow in the gut. Lately I've been wondering how to make it last, scraping my finger at the bottom of a bag, and how does he turn hurt into a healer? Oh, I've got questions for the dealer. Missed calls and laundry piled on a chair, folks banging on the door, but nobody's there. I feel like a junkie, sweating out the sick, trying to catch a ride and find what I missed. Oh, one last hit. I've been gone so long. Oh, I've been gone so long. Lately I've been wondering how to make it last, scraping my finger at the bottom of a bag, and how does he turn hurt into a healer? Oh, I've got questions. I've got questions. I've got questions for the dealer.
Thank you.
Boy, it's fantastic. We've been speaking with Salt Lick Incubator Liza Levy and listening to Salt Lick Incubator artist Kyle Ray. Thank you so much for being here, you guys, today. He's playing a bunch of shows. If you want to check it out, go to his Instagram account at Kyle Ray. I'll spell it for you, Kyle Ray Music, or go to the Umbrella Arts Organization. It's at Kyle Ray_music, or go to the Umbrella Arts Organization.
Two quick things. He's at the Cantab Lounge on Valentine's Day, and Roger Brown, Liza's colleague here with Salt Lick, is sitting in the audience, former president of Berklee.
Okay, coming up after the new news, we're going to talk with Callie Crossley about the first the tech giants and now media giants are bending their knee to accommodate Donald Trump. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
And it's the GBH Winter Membership Drive. And now is the perfect time to give to GBH because, get a load of this, it's $5 Friday. Yep, you heard me, $5 Friday. Become a sustaining member at just $5 a month and get all the stories, conversation, and topics that matter to you, and know that you are part of what makes GBH a great radio station. Start your sustaining membership now, $5 a month at gbhnews.org, or give us a call. We'll walk you through the process at 888-897-9424. I'm Jack Callahan, joining you today along with Melissa Jones.
The goal right now is 15 contributions in the next 6 minutes. We need the financial support of everyone who relies on GBH to keep this important service on the air and available to all. GBH has been your source of credible news, and your contribution now will help keep it that way. Listener contributions empower us to investigate, verify, and report the truth. Please give now to help us meet the goal of 15 contributions in the next 6 minutes. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And because it is $5 Friday, we also have a special offer at just $5 a month. It is the GBH charcoal gray beanie style cap with a folding cuff, and the GBH 89.7 logos embroidered in black. It is stunning. It's also practical, but it's going to keep you warm, and we know what we need this winter with that wind and the cold. $5 a month as a sustaining member. You could also give $60 all at once and take advantage of this offer. It's only available today, though, as we celebrate $5 Friday. Give us a call, 888-897-9424. You can also select this when you donate online at gbhnews.org.
Think about the credible range of programs, subjects, ideas, and people you encounter when you turn to GBH. At any given moment, you might encounter the pleasures of the familiar or the equally valuable rewards of the unknown. I love that we were just hearing some really great music that I'd never heard from a band before. That's what I find when I come to GBH. What do you find? Any moment you spend with GBH is time well spent. And if you agree with that, we hope that you will make a contribution right now at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Yeah, I hope you do something special today, and that's take part in this $5 Friday. We're asking you to join GBH now as a sustaining member for just that $5. Your ongoing monthly commitment will have a big impact on the news and the stories that you hear every day. Now, this is how we pay the bills and keep GBH strong, by getting a lot of listeners to give what they can. Can you please sign up right now and give $5 a month? Call 888-897-9424 or online at gbhnews.org.
If you've never given to GBH before, how about making a contribution as a sustaining member? That's that ongoing monthly contribution that comes directly from your checking account or credit card. It starts at just $5 a month, and as Jack has mentioned, you get that great hat if you'd like to choose that gift. But whatever the amount is that is right for your budget, and whether you join as a sustainer or give your gift all at once, we're asking you to join with us right now as a new member. You can do that at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And we're now looking for 11 more contributions before noon. That's about 4 minutes away to make sure that we hit the goal for this hour and stay on track. This is day number 3 of our winter drive, and it's been going really well, but we need the support from this hour to keep that momentum going. Will you be part of the solution? Make that contribution right now to keep Boston Public Radio on the air. 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
And support GBH right now with that ongoing monthly gift of just $5 for $5 Friday. And we can thank you with that great GBH knit hat. It's charcoal gray. It's a beanie style cap. It's got a folding cuff. And on that cuff is the GBH 89.7 logo embroidered in black. It's really a stylish little beanie hat. I love it. Keeps my ears nice and warm, my forehead warm when I go out for my walks. Don't take my word for it, though. Find out for yourself. Make your $5 a month sustaining gift right now. It's only available today, so don't wait until tomorrow because you won't get the hat. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Giving is so easy to do. We need your name, contact information, which we do keep private, by the way. You determine the amount and how you want to pay for it. Maybe become that sustaining member at $5 a month or a one-time gift. It doesn't matter to us as long as we ask you to participate, and you do. 888-897-9424 or online at gbhnews.org.
We're looking for just 7 more people to give in the next couple of minutes. Remember, trusted news is the cornerstone of a functioning democracy, and GBH and NPR are committed to delivering it, but we can't do it alone. Your contribution now helps us fight misinformation and deliver the truth to our communities. Every gift matters. Oh, we've got just a couple minutes left and 7 more people to give. How about you be one of those 7? gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Again, that phone number, our lifeline right now, 888-897-9424 or online at gbhnews.org. We're getting close, and with your help right now, we know that we'll hit the goal for this hour. We cannot say thank you enough to the listeners who turn into becoming active GBH supporters. You're cool, you're awesome, we love you, and we also need you. 888-897-9424.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Bernadine Sung Magazine with Compass Real Estate, serving buyers and sellers throughout Greater Boston. Learn more at homesbybernadine.com. And Boston Symphony Orchestra, presenting Schubert's 6th Symphony and Brahms' 1st Symphony, February 13th, 14th, and 15th at Symphony Hall, conducted by Herbert Blumstedt. More information at bso.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org.
I'm Jim Browdy, head of Hour 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. GBH's Callie Crossley joins to talk about media outlets joining tech giants in cowing to MAGA pressure, while Fox News puts Lara Trump, daughter-in-law of the president, in a host seat. And we'll discuss Harvard Athletics removing transgender inclusion policies from their website.
U.S. employers continued hiring in January, but at a slower pace than the month before. NPR's Scott Horsley has more.
U.S. employers added 143,000 jobs in January, a solid pace, but slower than the two previous months. Job gains for November and December were revised up by a total of 100,000 jobs. Hiring last month was concentrated in healthcare, retail, and government jobs. Factories and construction companies added relatively few workers in January, and temporary help services cut jobs. Average wages last month were up 4.1% from a year ago, which is likely more than enough to outpace inflation. The unemployment rate inched down to 4%. The Labor Department has also raised its estimate of the size of the workforce, taking into account higher immigration levels in the last 2 years than had previously been accounted for. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Some big companies are literally erasing diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. NPR's Maria Aspen discovered that General Motors, Pepsi, Disney, and others have scrubbed some or all of those words from their annual reports to investors.
Big companies have been backing away from their DEI programs for months. But a new NPR analysis found that many more are erasing the language of diversity without making a big announcement. At least a dozen big U.S. companies are deleting or softening references to diversity, equity, and inclusion from their new annual reports to investors. That's compared to language they used just 1 year ago. DEI was once a popular buzzword in corporate America, but companies are now under pressure from its critics. That pressure is mounting after President Trump issued executive orders ending DEI in the federal government and threatening some private companies with sanctions or civil investigations. Maria Aspen, NPR News, New York.
Today, House Speaker Mike Johnson met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and praised the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
This is what decisive leadership looks like. And with President Trump back in the White House and Republican control of Congress, America will not turn its back on our national security priorities.
Johnson did not address President Trump's comment Tuesday about a proposed U.S. takeover of the Gaza Strip and relocation of the Palestinian people. New York officials have temporarily shut down live poultry markets in New York City and 3 suburban counties because of bird flu. Governor Kathy Hochul's office gave notice today for the markets to close for 5 days while they clean and disinfect. Hochul says the avian flu, the H5N1 virus, does not pose an immediate threat to the public. Multiple states are dealing with an outbreak, and that's factoring in the nationwide surge in prices for eggs and other food products. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow is down 324 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston. I'm Craig Lamolt. A federal judge in Boston is weighing next steps in a lawsuit challenging President Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship. That's after a hearing this morning in the suit brought by a coalition that includes Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Campbell. Campbell slammed Trump's effort in a news conference ahead of the hearing.
Newborn babies and children should never be political targets, and we will not allow the president to treat them as such.
Birthright citizenship is guaranteed under the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The judge says they may issue a written decision in the case as early as today. The life expectancy for Boston residents varies widely depending on what neighborhood they live in. A report released yesterday by the Wu administration finds residents in the Back Bay live an average of 23 years longer than those living in Roxbury. The report outlines a plan to close that gap in the next 10 years and tackle other health disparities. It'll particularly focus on black residents who have the lowest life expectancy citywide. Boston officials plan to award around $10 million in grant funding to community groups working to improve economic mobility and inclusion in Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan. In 2020, Boston officials declared racism a public health crisis. Mostly sunny today, highs in the upper 30s. Mostly clear tonight, going down around 20. Saturday, partly sunny with a high in the mid-30s. And then snow coming in Saturday night. Continuing into Sunday, we could see as much as a foot of accumulation in some spots. Celtics have the night off. They'll be in New York tomorrow to play the Knicks. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com. This is NPR.
Hey, Mr. Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Governor Maura Healey will be with us at 1 o'clock for an hour for another edition of Ask the Governor. And Mayor Wu will be here with us at the library next Wednesday from 11 to 12, taking our questions and yours. Hello again, Jim.
Hey, Marjorie. So we're joined, is my mic on? I don't think so. Is it?
Yeah,
it is now.
It is now.
We're joined at the BPL desk by Kelly Crossley, host of Under the Radar with Kelly Crossley. You can catch her on Sunday nights right here, 89.7 at 6. You can also hear her Kelly commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. And she's a co-host for GBH's Culture Show. That airs daily at 2 o'clock right here at 89.7. And as you know, their Week in Review, which is on Friday, is right here at the Boston Public Library studio. Kelly Crossley, good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
So, Kelly, we've talked a lot about big tech, Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, and Amazon, of course, knuckling under to Donald Trump. Mark Zuckerberg owns Meta, Facebook, same thing. We just heard in the news, General Motors, Pepsi, Disney, wiping out their DEI language, all these major companies. The Hollywood Reporter's got a great piece about the media. In addition to Jeff Bezos, CBS with a suit involving the president and other companies just knuckling under to his reign, I guess, is what it's looking to be. What do you make of this?
It's scary because there have to be avenues where people can actually get information that is accurate. This is not to say that all journalists don't make mistakes. Some do, but we got to have some avenues by which you can get information that's not tainted by virtue of the company is not in cahoots, that's not the word I want to say, but not beholden, that's the word.
Yeah.
And so one of the pieces that they point to is that Paramount Global is trying to get this acquisition with Skydance, and that's in the purview of the FCC, and President Trump has just moved Brendan Carr, who's quite a conservative, to head of that, and fired some other people who are not as conservative. And Carr has said out loud, hey, if you don't play ball the way we think you should play ball, meaning you should support the agenda of Donald Trump in an overt way, Paramount Global, then you might not get what you want. That's a pay for play if I've ever seen one, and he wasn't at all afraid about saying that. So what we've seen by some anyway is a kind of quieting and a withdrawal, trying to figure out, well, where's the landscape,
Well, can we talk about a couple of examples to make this real for people? I think most people know that ABC News paid, $25 million because George Stephanopoulos, was it 15?
Yeah.
Millions of dollars because George Stephanopoulos said rape when the only thing Donald Trump had been convicted of or found liable for was sexual assault. I would say
because the laws are different
in every state. That's one.
Yes, it would have been rape in Massachusetts.
It would have been. The Paramount thing you mentioned is CBS News, 60 Minutes, arguably the most respected long-term news show ever here, did an interview with Kamala Harris in which they edited it. Now, you worked in national news for a long time. It is not a radical notion to interview a politician and edit the thing as long as the thrust of the interview is not changed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Meaning you can't take something she said at the beginning and something she said at the ending about two different things and put it together and say, that's okay. That's not what we mean.
Right. So as long as it's done fairly, it doesn't change the meeting.
Right.
And despite that, Paramount appears to be on the verge of yet another payout by the way, this is not to the government, it's to Donald Trump.
That's right.
Because they want this merger to go through. And I
and
worry.
His guy has said.
What's that?
His guy has said.
He said
if
it
you
outright.
don't-
I know.
Yeah.
And the thing I worry about is I worry that the average person is now so inundated. This is the infamous flood the zone thing, that they don't stop for a minute. Like that woman who called us this morning, that contractor for AID for a decade or 2 decades. I thought that was the most important part of the show so far because it made it real. People got to think about this. I mean, not only are they writing checks to the president for things where they did nothing wrong.
That's right.
But in the future, they're going to make sure they're much less attached to the facts for fear that they'll get sued
Or
again by
push
Donald
back.
Trump.
So let's go back to the George Stephanopoulos thing
Yeah.
for a minute, because pretty much every analyst across the board said there was no reason for ABC to kowtow, that this is
That's
a
right.
lawsuit
They would've won.
they could win.
Yep.
So we're all very puzzled about why. So you're left to think, well, maybe they said, we just don't want to deal with it. And then I'm going to talk to you about something I saw the other day, which in my mind is reflective of what has happened then. So there's a discussion on the morning news. I happen to be watching Good Morning America. That's not usually who I watch. There's George Stephanopoulos and there's Michael Strahan. And the guest was that young woman who is the communications director, who's got a level of intensity about her.
Carolyn Levitt
Yes.
from New Hampshire.
She's press secretary.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's the press secretary. So they're interviewing her about some of the things that have happened that, people are upset about or confused about or whatever. And guess who's doing the interview?
Strahan.
Michael
That
Strahan.
is correct.
Michael Strahan is a former fabulous football player, by the way, for those who don't know.
Yeah.
But he is not a journalist.
He is not a journalist. He is, and
That
it's
is
clear
unbelievable.
it is clear to me that they gave him the question, so he did, as good a job as he could by following the questions. But meanwhile, George Stephanopoulos said nothing. No interruption, no, let me follow up, nothing. And I thought, well, here we go.
Well, this was one that I found very scary, too. People may remember Adam Kinzinger. He was one of the Republicans, the only one, really, with Liz Cheney that was on the January 6th committee. And he put out this documentary called The Last Republican that apparently got huge rave reviews in the Toronto International Film Festival, which is kind of a big deal film festival. He cannot find a major buyer, and he had to self-distribute this thing because people were afraid to run it. NBC, I was talking about, at the beginning we were talking about Rachel Maddow, who's on NBC, MSNBC I should say, and she has been brutal in her attacks on Trump. And Saturday Night Live is kind of giving him a run for his money too, so they seem not to be turning over
Well, can I give you
as
2 more
quickly as
examples?
CBS or ABC.
An example was the guy who was on our show yesterday, Chuck Todd, when they hired the former chair of the RNC as an analyst at NBC News on Meet the Press. He wasn't the host of Meet the Press then, he was a guest that particular week, said, this is outrageous. This is about his boss, by the way. That takes a lot of courage. It's outrageous by his courage and leadership doing what we think journalists should do in that circumstance. A bunch of other NBC News high-profile people rallied around the same cause, and ultimately they rescinded the offer to her. But that's what's got to happen. Otherwise, the bosses, who in most cases, obviously there's some exceptions, bosses are more concerned about their bottom line these days, it appears. LA Times, Washington Post, etc. Individual journalists at great risk have to stand up.
I know. And here's the thing, the article had a brutal cartoon at the end of various people bending over, lying flat, or standing up to indicate those persons in high-level media positions who had already kowtowed, who seemed to be trying to maintain some stability and critical pushback. And to be clear, we're not just talking about, pushback for pushback. You need to be asking some critical questions about these things, as you would of anybody who's in that office. But to have nothing, and to have no support for those journalists who are out there. We didn't mention Jim Acosta from
got
CNN.
moved, yes.
Who wouldn't take a midnight slot, who was
That's right.
arguably the toughest on
And he said
Trump
something
and
like,
the whole
on the
station.
way out, that there is no good time to roll over for a tyrant.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but
Yes.
tyrant was the word he used to describe Trump.
Well, what we know from history is that when the takeover comes, when the coup happens, as they happen, the first thing they take over is communications, because that's very important. So we're seeing if this is what's going to happen, we're in a deep trouble. And I would add one other thing. I think it's easier to kowtow if you think you have company. So if you were one alone, maybe you're not as courageous or feeling like people are going to attack me for kowtowing. But if there's 2 or 3 of my buddies, it doesn't look so bad. Maybe.
Well, in this part of the story, this headline, that great sucking up sound,
yes,
or suck upping sound is the way they put it. They talk about the only mogul left standing, fully erect, is Brian Roberts from NBC, which remains, calling them as they see them. They brought Maddow back 5 nights a week. She'd only been there 1 night a week, and then they go to all the people that have knuckled under, including the head of Disney, the head of Warner Brothers, Netflix head CEO Ted Sarandos, not totally fallen in line, but he visited Mar-a-Lago and had a nice chat.
I want to remind you that so did Mika and Joe visited Mar-a-Lago
right after the election.
They did, and I have been unable to watch their show, but I tuned in the last couple of days. They are not softballing Trump, at least from what I saw.
By the way, that Michael Strahan thing is the best example.
I'm
so
kept
glad
looking
I didn't
at
know
it.
anything about that.
I
It
was
is
shocked.
incredible.
I was shocked. I
And
was
by the
sitting
way,
there.
it's not that the guy's not a really smart guy. He's smart and funny. He's great, but he's not a journalist.
Well, Stephanopoulos is a really tough interviewer.
He is tough.
And on top of that, he's not the guy that could do the follow-up. So he's got a list of questions.
Strahan.
He's going to go down Strahan.
Yeah.
He's going to go down the list. And then, if there's some follow-up, he's not the guy. That's not his intuitive field.
One last thing on this theme. So much of the historically responsible press is kowtowing to Trump and whatever, and writing checks in virtually any way they can. And the flip side is at Fox News, the Saturday night host is the daughter-in-law. Laura Trump is about to get a show. Is the daughter-in-law of the president. And again, I criticize people who do whataboutism. So let me do whataboutism.
Okay.
If Hunter Biden, well, he's a bad example because he had criminal problems too. If the daughter of Joe Biden had gotten a show on CNN, would people not correctly on the right go out of their minds? Of course they would.
Yes.
And there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing on the right because, again, they're so scared of Donald Trump. I mean, the brilliance, I have to say, there's never been a president, at least in my lifetime, who is so paralyzed people on his side of the political ledger. It is unbelievable. It is really incredible.
There's a great irony here. People have compared this to the McCarthy era, when, of course, people were afraid to talk about having been to a communist party meeting 30, 40, 50 years ago when they were 19 years old or whatever. And, of course, the guy that sat at the right hand or left hand, I don't know which hand he was on, at the congressional hearings was, of course, Ray Cohn.
Roy Cohn, too.
I thought that's what I said. Did I say Roy Cohn?
You said Roy.
Sorry, Roy Cohn, who, of course, was a mentor of Donald Trump. So some things never change, I guess. But,
the Laura Trump thing is not surprising for a lot of folks in that she's going to Fox News. I think what's going to be interesting maybe down the road, at some point, I mean, she's there because they expect her to have all the inside information, right? But I don't know. Will she at every point have that? I think it might be interesting to see. Not a fallout, but I
don't think it's just about information. It makes the President of the United States happy, and that's much of the media's
there you go.
goal these days.
We're talking with GBH's Callie Cross. We're going to keep talking with her after a quick pledged break. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference, but please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
Okay, let me read a couple of local women sue all the guest hosts, and I put up with Jim. Well, there we go again. That seems to be a theme this morning. But, on and on. People are so good, and I just hope you'll be inspired by them. If you haven't given yet, to not only give, but maybe spend a minute and talk about the wonderful work our colleagues do who are hosting shows, working behind the scenes. And you do it quickly by calling 888-897-9424 or going to gbhnews.org.
Well, Jim, a friend in Salem was very impressed that you quickly intervened when the woman who had just lost her job at USAID called and asked how it felt to lose that job after 2 decades. This person says it was reading the room as Jim did, the latest proof of his and Marjorie's alertness, empathy, and professional chops. Isn't that nice?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that was a very devastating call.
She was incredible.
She had, no notice, no severance, no nothing. Anyway, we very much appreciate people that take the time to donate to us and to keep us operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have huge numbers of programs on the weekend. Callie's sitting here. She's got a great show every Sunday night at 6 o'clock. We have wonderful shows on the weekend, too. A lot of things that are very unusual. Code Switching is a great show. We have On the Media, which is a great show. We have a bunch of great stuff in addition to our show here, 5 days a week, 3 days a week. No, it's 5 days a week, 3 hours a day.
I think it's 5 days
That's
a week.
it. I
Yeah,
got
I
it
think
straight.
it's every day.
So anyway, we very much appreciate people listening and taking the time to donate. 888-897-9442.
Who are we and why are we here?
That's the question I ask myself every day.
That's the question we all should.
More and more often, it seems.
How about this hat thing? Now, here's the deal.
The hat. I forget about the hat.
The enticement, as Marjorie calls it, $5 a month or $60 all at once. It's a GBH fleece line knit hat. I shouldn't rank the enticements, as Marjorie calls them. This is one of my favorites. Actually, it fits large heads, which matters a lot to Marjorie.
That's
and
right.
me.
We both have big heads.
It's a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It's warm. It works. And you also get to show that you support the programs on the station because people can see your GBH 89.7 thing. $5 a month, $60 all at once, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. In about 10 plus minutes, Shirley Leung from the Globe will be here. And at 1 o'clock for the full hour, Governor Maura Healey will join us here. We're continuing our conversation with Kelly Crossley.
So Kelly Crossley, sometimes it seems during the election, the whole election was all about eggs and trans women and women's sports. We heard that constantly from the GOP, not from the Democrats, but from the GOP. And I know it's unpopular. And I know Trump is obsessed with this, but I was surprised with the speed at which Charlie Baker, our former governor, who now runs the NCAA, and Harvard University said, okay, done. We're done with that. It's going to be people that are biologically born male, biologically born female, et cetera. What'd you make of the speed part?
Well, Charlie Baker said if the federal government issues, we're going to respond, period. So that's, I guess, the NCAA has those funds, and that's what's going to happen. The speed part, I'm actually quite shocked about. I actually also don't know. I've been asking this question. We've moved on so that we have all gender bathrooms. We have, other spaces that people are, and some people are comfortable with, or other people just say that's not my business. I'm not dealing with whatever. And now this seems like a giant step back. So people are sort of lost in the twilight
that's
zone.
A great point. Are we going to have to remove the signs?
I don't
Maybe
know.
you'll get arrested if you go into an all-gender bathroom.
I have no
that could be
idea.
next. I don't know.
The issue for me here, because this is an issue where there's a big split in America,
Yes.
and I would guess a majority of people, not a huge majority, are probably with Trump. To me, that's not the issue. It's the issue that Marjorie said, which is, it's sort of like, how fast can you prove to Donald Trump that we're complying with what you say? I mean, we talk about Harvard almost every day. There is not a day that they do not embarrass themselves. The most powerful institution in the world, if they feel, because they get, $700 million of federal funds every year, that they have to comply, maybe that's their decision.
But they
have
have
to
that
comply.
huge endowment.
But literally,
Billions.
the speed with which they did this was almost like, we want to show Donald Trump that we are obedient little people over there. And it's embarrassing to me. And you know what's embarrassing? I throw one more thing into this mix. Marjorie and I made a huge mistake on Monday, I think, or Tuesday, with Trenny Casey, NBC Sports Boston, praising Roger Goodell, who I generally have no time for, head of the NFL, who said we're not backing down from DEI, and we all said, boy, how great is that. What did he do the next day, Kelly Crossley?
Take down the end racism sign in the end zone that's been there since 2021 in February.
At the Super Bowl. And why is he taking it down?
Well, because we want to be sensitive.
And who is showing up at the game?
Your president, Donald Trump, is showing up at the game. And I find that really interesting and amusing in one way, because he is going to New Orleans, one of the most culturally diverse cities in the country.
Yeah.
There is
Good
nowhere you can go in that city where you are not touching, being involved in, immersed in all of the culture of people of color. Beginning with 26-year-old Black Taj Williams, who created both the theme and the logo for the Super Bowl, okay? All the food you will eat, every single bit of it, from muffaladas to po' boys to gumbo to everything else, that's all people of color, okay? And let's not forget, right there, Black history that you don't want taught anywhere, 2 Black quarterbacks facing each other only for the second time in the 58-year history of the Super Bowl. Oh, wow. It's too bad all these people have no talents, meritless people.
That's right.
They only got to where they got because of DEI.
I also, by the way, but it bears mentioning, if it turns out the slogan in the end zone said, DEI is great and we're fully committed to it, I would still say, show some principle.
Well, absolutely.
This doesn't. All this says is end racism.
Right.
And they're worried that because the President of the United States embraces racism and a lot of what he does, he'll be offended. So they pull the damn thing down in a league where 55% of the players are Black, by the way. It is unimaginably horrible, and an opportunity where 120 million people in this country are going to watch a game.
Correct.
They'd see a sign, they'd see something that actually matters in our lives, but instead, if people don't know, it's going to say choose love is what's replacing. And
or it takes all of us.
It takes
all of us to do something. We don't know what.
And it reminds me how different the times were when we thought the quarterback, Kaepernick, the one that took a knee, that I think some of us, I thought he will get rehired, he will come back, that it's going to matter what he did. And I was very naive, I guess, to think that, because I did.
Well, I mean, I think definitely his statement made some people think, and some other people responded, but he personally didn't benefit. And he said, if he really wanted to play, but if it didn't happen for him, it didn't happen.
The courage it took for him to do that.
That's right.
Most people know he's a Super Bowl quarterback. He didn't win a Super Bowl,
yes.
but he was a really talented guy. By the way, do you remember that in Trump 1.0, he sent Mike Pence to a game so that he could walk out of the game to show his protest? I mean, it's just...
And said how many people should be fired.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
he
all
said,
these people
get
should
rid
be
of those.
fired.
He said, sons of bitches.
Yes,
That's what
yes,
Trump said, so
that
I
is
think
correct.
we can too. Okay, what are you doing on Sunday and what are you doing at 2 o'clock today?
We are doing an environmental roundtable.
This is Sunday.
This is Sunday for Under the Radar. And there's so much yet going on environmentally that's really problematic after the LA fires that has a lot of impact on the rest of us. So one of the things are the fire pollutants. And no one knows quite how to deal with that and what the results are going to be. Is it even safe to breathe? The firefighters are already in some kind of...
Like the World Trade Center.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Except, it's interesting, when I was talking to my experts, they said that's actually not the best comparison.
It's not?
No. But I will say this. Because of the urban nature of these fires, there's a lot of metals like the cars and all this lead that's in that atmosphere, all those particles that are very different from, let's just say, wildfires up in the woods somewhere, which is bad enough. So that's a problem. We're talking about President Trump ordering 2 dams to open up and, send water to LA because there's no water there, and the water doesn't go to LA.
It was
there for the farmers. For the spring. Now, the farmers have no water because, water's at a premium in California. We're also talking about, again, something that impacts us. You heard how many people lost their insurance or couldn't get any insurance in LA. Martha's Vineyard, very high rate of non-renewable, all because of climate change conditions. So it's coming to all of us because, as one of my guests says, we used to think California, Florida, okay, these are the problems where climate change may get people, insurance companies not wanting to take a risk, but now it's everywhere. All of those conditions are everywhere. So we're talking about all of that has to go on. And then, just to lighten up the mood so we won't, jump off a bridge, we're doing food and wine, the hottest trends happening in town now. Niche bakeries, tiny cocktail bars.
Oh, great.
Fun.
Really, just, something fun just to lift us up a little bit.
Okay, we'll leave 2 o'clock as a surprise. 2
Yes,
o'clock
that's
live
right.
here at the Boston Public Library. Kelly, thanks for your time. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
We have been speaking with GBH's Callie Cross, the host of Under the Radar with Callie Cross, which you can hear Sunday nights, 6 o'clock here on 89.7, and hear Callie's commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. And Callie, of course, is co-host of GBH's Culture Show, which airs daily at 2. And today is right here at the Boston Public Library, right after we're done. Thanks a lot, Callie. After a quick break, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung is going to join us on the Josh Kraft. I'm really tongue-tied today. Josh Kraft versus Michelle Wu mayoral race. And who would have thought 100,000 organic eggs stolen from the back of the truck as egg prices go through the roof? Could this be the beginning of a nationwide egg heist from coast to coast? You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH Live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
That number to give, one more time, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Takes a minute. You'll feel good afterwards. You really will. Give only what you can. Here are a couple of more comments from people who have already been generous enough to give. Denise in Portsmouth. Love, capital letters, Jim and Marjorie. I appreciate real journalism, your factual news reports. We can't stand for misinformation. Margaret in Hampton. Love, Jim and Marjorie. Getting most of my news through GBH NPR these days. Friend in Dorchester Center. Longtime listener. One day will be a first-time caller. Love the show. Thank you all. We hope a lot more of you will do the same thing that your fellow listeners have done. It takes a minute. As I said, you'll feel good. Only give what you can afford. If you can afford a lot, do a lot. If you can afford only a little, give whatever you can. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And until 6 o'clock today, we have our little enticement, our gift for the day for people who donate $5 a month or more. It is a GBH fleece-lined knit hat. Very attractive, of course, beanie-style cap, folding cuff, GBH 89.7 logo. I have one from last year. It's really, really warm because the fleece inside makes it feel really good. So that's the deal. And then when you do give that $5 or a month or more per month, you become a sustaining member, so you get the little goodies that come along with that, including our kind of nice magazine you get for people that are sustainers. You get to find out what's going on that month on TV and on the radio. So 888-897-9424 is the number to call, or gbhnews.org is where you can give securely. We very much appreciate people listening to us. We very much appreciate your supporting what you hear on GBH 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. In a little more than 30 minutes, will join us in person here for an hour of Ask the Governor. Joined at the library by Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung. First, she also hosts the podcast Say More with Shirley Leung. New episodes every Thursday. Hi, Shirley.
Hi, Jim.
Hey
Hi,
there.
Marjorie.
Yeah, you had another great podcast. Going to get to that in a few minutes. But first, you were at the announcement. Josh Kraft is giving a challenge to Michelle Wu. He wants to be the mayor of Boston. How did he do?
So he was at Prince Hall in Dorchester, and it was very carefully choreographed. And I'd actually just written a piece about him courting the black community. You know, that's kind of his lane. You know, he had spent a long time, 30 years as the head of, first as various heads, and but the last 12 years the head of the Boys and Girls Club of Boston. And so he's very familiar with Mattapan, Dorchester, Roxbury, those communities. And so one of my big questions about Josh Kraft, because he's a nonprofit leader, right?
Yeah.
And he's never run for office before.
Nope.
And so would he be too nice? You know, would he get in there and start to take some shots at Michelle Wu? And he did that first day. He did. He went after her, basically saying, she thinks she has all the answers. She needs to do more listening. We need to build more housing. And he immediately called for a pause on bike lane construction, new bike lane construction, knowing that's a hot button issue. And so he came out swinging. I was a little surprised by that.
You know what I was also surprised by? Generally, when you're new to politics and you have a kickoff event, you do 6 million interviews in about 6 minutes. Last night he was on WBZ News, a very friendly forum, I think it's fair to say, with Dan Ray. That's the only interview that I know. And by the way, we're requesting, we really hope he comes soon. But when people really only know you as the son of Robert Kraft, and he has done much in his life. I'm not subscribing to that, but the New York Times headline was Patriots owner, son.
That's right.
You do everything you can as quickly as you can to portray yourself as you want to be portrayed. I mean, for example, Mayor Wu is going to be here next Wednesday. I assume we'll spend a decent amount of time, not a lot, but some amount of time talking about him. Without him being out there, he's letting Wu supporters and Wu herself define him. I mean, for example, her line was, "I want to welcome Josh Kraft to Boston."
Which is a great line.
That was a great line because he just moved here to the North End in November. So, again, I'm surprised and that he has not been blanketing every single outlet and making himself available to everybody. But so far, as I say, BZ Radio last night was it.
Right. Well, the day of the event, he did make himself available
to reporters who were there, right?
To reporters who were there, right? Yeah. And he is. I mean, he did do an interview with Boston Magazine over the summer. And
pre-announcement.
Pre-announcement. Right. So, I guess I feel like I know a lot about Josh Kraft. I think if we wanted interviews, I hope he does come on.
If you stopped 100 people on the street and said, "Do you know who Josh Kraft is?" I don't know how. For those who said yes, whatever number it was, right. Okay, what do you know about him? What would they say? He's the son of Robert Kraft.
Right. They still don't know me. Right. You're absolutely right. And so I hope he does come on.
Oh, I'm sure he will. Oh, by the way, I don't mean he won't. I'm sure he will. It's just generally new candidates, particularly who are running for a first time. I mean, Donald Trump came on our radio show in New Hampshire about a minute after he got there, and that's what people do, and I hope he does it soon. You know what's really interesting, though, to me? A lot of people, including you and others, have said bike lanes are going to be a big issue. But I was listening to the Dan Ray interview. He's not against bike lanes, and he made that very, very clear. I'm not against bike lanes, and I'm paraphrasing now. I want the planning to be better. That's a nuanced position for people. Most people who are upset about bike lanes are not saying, well, I want better planning. They say, these bike lanes are a disaster. That's not where he is.
Or on rent, he's pro-rent control.
Well, an odd sort of rent control.
Yeah, a voluntary rent control. And I also did a piece about the business community. And
tell us about that. What do they say?
So there's a certain segment of the business community, developers and real estate community in particular, they've been at odds with Mayor Wu for a long time. She's been trying to raise property tax rates on them. Yeah. She's been trying to do rent control. She has she passed a lot of policies that are good for climate change, but add to their costs. And so and so a lot of them don't like her, but they're not quite ready to support Josh Kraft either. They don't quite know who he is yet. And I talked to Tom O'Brien and also Bruce Pursley, two prominent developers and landlords, and they were very careful in their in their comments. They're basically saying, we welcome a contested race between Josh Kraft and Michelle Wu, and hopefully it'll be an opportunity for all of us to kind of air what we'd like to see
why that is?
In the next 4 years.
Because Michelle Wu may be the next mayor.
Exactly.
Well, David D'Alessandro used to run John Hancock. I thought he wrote the most astute piece about the business community and Michelle Wu.
In the
Globe, where he basically said, they get ticked off because you used to call previous mayors, and my goodness, they couldn't get back to you fast enough, these real estate developers, because they're rich and all that kind of stuff, and they're powerful in the city. She didn't get back to them. She diverted them to her staff. They didn't like that. And I also think that there's a certain, who is she? She's, she's a woman of color. Came from Chicago. I think there was an ego bruising that went on with Michelle Wu, and they can't take it. Not talking about the people you necessarily talk to, but in kind of a general sense.
I think in the beginning that's true, but I think now we're at the point where they want to build. The housing, we're not building a lot of housing in Boston. A lot of these developers are actually building outside of Boston, where the economic conditions are a little more favorable. I know that high interest rates are preventing a lot of construction from moving forward, but there is construction happening outside of Boston. So I think I'm hoping that this contested race will be an opportunity
hold on.
Yes.
Is it the affordable housing that's happening? Because that's what Boston needs. I mean,
any type of housing.
Any kind of housing.
There's just a
So what's the holdup on the affordable housing in Boston?
Well, Michelle Wu has passed a lot of, energy efficient requirements, higher inclusionary, affordable housing requirements. So it's making
it's not just all her. Interest rates are high. People worried about the tariffs and lumber.
Right. So it's a combination of factors. But the thing is that there's got to be a way where both sides compromise, because I think the developers want to build.
When you drive down 93 into Boston, what do you see? Cranes everywhere. So somebody's building something around
but
here.
That building started long ago, and so because it takes a long time to build, and so. But I think we're at a point where new construction has to happen. A lot of things have been permitted.
Affordable construction has to happen.
Affordable, any kind of construction.
But any kind of construction is a problem.
But if there's more supply, Marjorie, the likelihood is the prices.
Okay,
I agree with you, but construction.
They just built all these new apartments right near me in Boston. Austin, I'm on the Brookline Boston line. There's nothing affordable in that building whatsoever. I mean, they're $3,000 and $4,000 and $5,000 a month rents.
We got to take a break. Can we continue this housing discussion in a second?
Yeah. Okay.
You're the one who goes to a break.
All right, we're going to a break. We're talking with Shirley Leung. I'm all revved up here about affordable housing.
We'll get back to it in a second.
We'll get back to it in just a second. Shirley Leung is a great business columnist for the Boston Globe. Who just did a great podcast about not dry January, but sort of dry January, I guess. We're going to talk about that when we come back. You're listening to Boston Public Radio live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Live, local, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Jim Braude, Marjorie Egan, Boston Public Radio. It's here on GBH Radio because of your support. Now's your chance to keep the conversation going. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Boy, we have some really nice ones, Jim. Here's a nice one about youth from Lisa in East Walpole. GBH shows are informative and entertaining. Jim's outrage is helping me get through these awful times. Thank you. And Denise in Portsmouth says, love Jim and Marjorie, keeping me laughing every day, even in these dark times. And Marguerite says the same thing. I love this show and do not know what I would do without these people. And listen to this from Aiden in Londonderry, Vermont. GBH has been a part of my whole life, starting with Julia Child and Fred Rogers. My husband and I are already sustainers, but I'm giving extra today because I'm a frequent texter to us, Jim. And Aiden says he or she cannot imagine not having us in their life every day. Isn't that nice?
Really nice.
I know, it's very good. So if you want to join all these people,
they don't really know us.
They don't know us, that's true. But if you want to join those people saying nice things about us, what you have to do is you have to donate first, then you can say the nice things, and then we'll read them. The numbers are 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
So let's just look at today. Shirley Leung is here. I would say one of the agenda setters in the city.
She is.
Now, look at her. She's humble like
she's
you
a big
are.
Deal. Big
she
deal.
writes a column. That's what people talk
That's
about
right.
in the city. In exactly 23 minutes, the governor is going to come here and spend an hour answering our questions and yours. You can call, text, or you can go to, I think, Nicole, one of our colleagues over there, can ask her a question face-to-face. The mayor on Wednesday. Plus, it's not just Shirley. We have a ton of fabulous guests who you learn from, I hope are entertained by, and we learn from and are entertained by. If you agree with any of that, you don't have to agree with all of it. If you agree with any of it, call 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. You said something yesterday that I've said too, but you said it well, that when you give, how do you feel after you make a contribution?
You feel good about yourself.
You do. You do.
Yeah. It's like when you do something nice for somebody else, you always feel good about
Well,
yourself.
but you also become part of something in a deeper
join a
way,
club.
don't you?
Yes.
You really are.
That's right.
And so it's good for us, and I know this is presumptuous, but Marjorie and I donated to this station long before we worked here. We would argue it's good for you, too. So 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And if you give at least $5 a month or $60 all at once, you get this lovely, knit hat with a fleece lining. Shirley's very envious. It says GBH 897 on it. Maybe I can take care of you, Shirley. At 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. We're talking to Shirley Leung. The governor will be here in about 20 minutes.
So one more thing before we leave the subjects of the mayoral race. Michelle Wu said she's going to go testify before Congress on March 5th. Is this a good idea for her?
Well, we talked a little bit about this last time, and at first I was like, oh, I don't know. Remember what happened to Claudine Gay and all those other university presidents? It didn't end well for them. But I think both of you were saying she should go.
I wanted her to bring the brand new baby and nurse in the halls of Congress. I don't know if that's going to happen.
She will definitely be better prepared than Claudine Gay and the university presidents. And it's a high risk, but also a high reward moment for her.
You know what I also liked, correct me either of you if I got the wrong set of facts. I think this is the issue. When Josh Kraft was asked the other day, should she go to Washington and testify? And he said something like, I support whatever she does here. While I am totally with you, there is nothing that good can come from a Josh Kraft, Michelle Wu race. Two committed, hardworking, dedicated, smart people. But they don't have to fight her every damn thing. And I thought even that little thing saying he supported her, if that's what she decided to do, and she did, is a good thing. Get that off the table and argue about the issues like housing or bike lanes or how we deal with people who are undocumented. Deal with the tough issues. Don't fight over absolutely everything. We're talking to Shirley Leung from the Boston Globe.
So tell us about your podcast, Dry January. I heard so many people that were doing the Dry January. A lot of my kids and their friends were doing Dry January after a wild and raucous December. But you were talking about like a semi-dry January.
Right. So now there's Dry January where people go sober. They don't drink at all. But then there's damp January where you drink far less. And then I learned that some people, it became high January for some people. Right? Instead of drinking, they did marijuana. But I wanted to explore this issue because I think a lot of people are, and the research has shown this, a lot of people are not drinking as much, especially the younger generation. And I talked to this doctor, Dr. Hadlin from Mass General for Children.
Yeah, great interview.
Yeah, and he's great. He studies, adolescents and teens and young adults, and he's finding among his cohort that they are drinking far less. They are doing marijuana more, but they're drinking far less. So there seems to be at least a cultural shift on drinking. Yes, binge drinking still happens in college, but it's not the same. People aren't drinking as much.
And you also visited this cool bar where they do the so-called mocktails, right?
Right. Well, it wasn't a bar; it's a liquor store, or not a liquor. It's a mocktail store, basically. Dre in the South End. I think they opened.
There's one in Cambridge, Central Square,
as well.
Yeah.
And it's set up just like a wine shop, right?
Yeah.
You walk in, and they've got bottles of wine, they've got beer cans, but no alcohol in them, and they have also spirits too. And I learned a lot about. This shop's been around for I think a couple of years, and it's a really fast-growing market. You see it in restaurants too, right?
Yes,
the mocktail menu is huge, and so the beer and I was saying that I love spirits, I love gin, I love a good whiskey, but I was like but these the fake ones are terrible. He said yes, it's because the real thing is 40% alcohol. So it's like you're tasting the alcohol. So when you take the alcohol out, it's not going to taste the same. He said it'll probably be another decade before the technology is there where it actually tastes.
This is the guy that owns the store?
Yeah, they own the store.
And he's bad-mouthing the product?
Well, he's agreeing with me. He's basically saying if you like scotch, if you like bourbon, it's not at a point now where you pour it and it will taste
Can you
like
mix
burnt.
it though with a
You
bunch
can mix
of,
it. Yeah, you're better off mixing it with something.
Did you taste any of this? I didn't listen
of course,
to the podcast.
yeah, I
yet.
did.
And
I did taste
what's
it.
your take on it?
Yeah, they're terrible. It was the scotch was terrible.
Jesus.
But there
I'm
was.
sure he must be glad to talk to you.
The beer is good.
The beer is very good.
The beer
is pretty good.
I've had a lot of that.
And like the red, it was good. He was like the white wine, the fake white wine, the fake sparkling wine is actually pretty good, but the red wine is not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And
you're a guest on Jim and Marjorie. What do you think of the show? Horrible. Horrible.
I would never say that.
Absolutely horrible. So, but it's, the thing that, I don't know if the research exists yet, and I apologize, I haven't listened to the podcast yet. I do listen to your podcast. Are the former Surgeon General saying that despite all this crap you've heard through the years, even moderation is not good.
Right.
Any amount of alcohol is not good for your health, and all and it's not just Vivek Murthy, other people doing the same thing. Do we know yet if any of that's having an effect, or are people so anti-science and anti-authority that nobody gives a damn what experts say about anything anymore?
No, I think it is having effect because someone people are emailing me. I think it is having effect, and I asked him about this. It's like, did we suddenly wake up and to discover that alcohol causes cancer, is bad for you? And he said, no, it's been around for a long time. It's just, and now the Surgeon General is, the ex-Surgeon General has made it, kind of elevated it. And so now people are really paying attention. But he said, listen, it's not that, he was saying it's an individual choice. He said the doctor said you could still drink, just in moderation.
Yeah.
It's not like it's so toxic it's gonna kill you. But he was like, but you should be mindful. And so, I know my own drinking. As I gotten older, I drink less because I just don't like the way it feels anymore. It just doesn't. I don't digest it the same way.
There's a group of people, I know it's not as large, not people who drink alcohol and are now thinking of switching to mocktails. You spoke to them. I've told you, my older daughter cannot have even sniff alcohol. It literally cannot sniff it. It's horrible. So she never had the joy, and it's fun to have a little buzz. So she is coming to mocktails, and she loves them from the experience of not knowing what alcohol tastes like. And there's a significant number of people that fall into that category. For those people, mocktails are like allowing you into the club without the problem.
Right. And also at this, what I like in particular is this new group of drinks. They call them functional drinks. They have like what they call adaptogens.
I don't know what that is.
And they're like mushrooms or something. I don't know. They're plants. I don't know what they are.
Boy.
Basically, herbs. Basically, how when you drink the sleepy tea, the tea that makes you sleep.
Yeah.
It's the same ingredients, but they're in like a spirit form. They like the one drink that I love was something called Nightcap. It looks like it's in
bunch of mushrooms.
It's a bunch of mushrooms, I think. And you take like a shot of it. I make my own version of a hot toddy. It's a little sweet. It's a little herby. I add a little hot water, and it actually relaxes me and gets me. Relax me and helps me fall asleep.
I can't imagine you relax, but that's a whole other time. Before you go, Margaret and I thought you were the person to answer this question, since you are the business columnist of the Globe. Some people stole 100,000 eggs in some place in Pennsylvania.
This. Yes.
And
Right
the
out of the
question
truck.
Marjorie and I asked of each other at the exact same moment this morning, what do you do with 100,000 eggs once you steal them?
I don't know. It's like $40,000 worth of eggs.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do with them. And then I was thinking, you must have to transport them very carefully too.
Because they do crack.
Do you go
That is
around and
correct.
try to sell them to people for cheap?
That would take a while.
It's a lot of eggs.
Yeah, it's a lot of eggs.
And you might be conspicuous doing it.
Right. Like, why do you have so many eggs?
I have no idea. But you know what the headline says? A heist of 100,000 eggs becomes a whodunit. Police have yet to crack
it.
Hey, I can't see because it's a CNN cover of Time. The guy sitting behind the Oval desk in the Oval Office is Elon Musk, right?
Oh, wow. That's gonna make Trump mad.
You think it will?
Really mad.
We'll see. Shirley Leung, great podcast. Marjorie says I'm listening
it is
to
a
it
great
this weekend.
podcast.
And
Great
columns have been
production
terrific.
too.
Thank you.
Great sound and everything else.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being
we've been
here.
speaking with Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung. She's the host of the podcast Say More with Shirley Leung. It is a great podcast, very well produced. She joins us every week. After the 1 o'clock news, it is time for Ask the Governor with Maura Healey. She's going to take our questions and yours right here at the Boston Public Library. You are listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. live from the library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
And this is a special winter day here for GBH's membership drive. It's $5 Friday, and we're asking you to join with a sustaining gift of just $5 a month. Your $5 sends a powerful signal to GBH that you value the fact-based journalism and your life on the radio. And combined with the donations from the other GBH members, your $5 per month ensures that GBH will remain on the air in Boston. Sign up as a sustaining member at gbhnews.org or give us a call at 888-897-9424. I'm Jack Callahan, joined by Melissa Jones.
Trusted news sources are more crucial than ever. NPR and GBH stand as beacons of truth and reliability, but to continue providing accurate and unbiased news, we do need your financial support. Right now, the goal is to receive 12 contributions in the next about 5 minutes. Your financial support helps to combat misinformation and our communities and keep our country well informed. That's 12 contributions in the next 5 minutes. We're looking to hear from you right now at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Yes, Boston Public Radio and GBH 89.7 is the home for Jim and Marjorie. They're about as Boston as you can get, just like a Boston baked bean or a scrod filet down at the harbor side. They are Boston, and we are so pleased that they're part of our home. We can provide that home, though, only with help from our listeners, and that's why we're asking you today on $5 Friday to participate and make the most generous contribution that you can, maybe $5 a month even, 888-897-9424. Or online at gbhnews.org.
Okay, how about this? You make that $5 a month sustaining gift right now, and we can thank you with our awesome GBH knit hat. It's a limited offer. It's only good for today, so it's $5 right now per month. We're going to send you this charcoal gray beanie. It's got a folding cuff. It's got the 89.7 logo embroidered in it in black, so when you walk around, keeping your head nice and warm, you can let everyone know that you're smart and supporting GBH with your $5 a month right now. Give us a call at 888-897-9424 or go online to gbhnews.org. Do that right now.
It's a great time to become a new monthly sustaining member to GBH because it is $5 Friday. Your commitment of just $5 a month goes a long way to pay for the news coverage and conversations that you're relying on even more these days. You can sign up easily. It's so easy to do. You can do it online by yourself at gbhnews.org or give us a call. We'll walk you through the process at 888-897-9424.
Listen, GBH is listener supported. That means we're here because you want us here. This fund drive is an important reminder to do your part and make the contribution to help us continue to be here for you, so that you got not only radio to listen to, but radio that you believe in. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Okay, we're now looking for 8 more contributions to go in about the next 3 minutes to put the wraps on this hour of Boston Public Radio with Jim and Marjorie. 8 more heroes to step up. I hope that you can be one of them, a GBH hero at that. 888-897-9424 or online, as many are doing this hour, at gbhnews.org.
I'm encouraging you to sign up as a sustainer to GBH right now. I'm a sustainer. I love giving that way because I choose the amount that's just right for me. I know it's happening automatically every month. I don't have to worry about when I listen if my support is up to date, because it is. It's a great way to give. You can choose to use your checking account or your credit card and make that happen right now. Again, you're in control when you give us a sustainer. And if you give it $5 a month right now, we'll send you that really great hat. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
I want to shout out to Beth in Mansfield, but she said she loves Jim and Marjorie. We all do. You help keep me sane during these insane times. Also, she trusts the news. She enjoys the weekend shows like Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me and the Moth Radio Hour. She likes the podcast too, like The Big Dig. Keep up the good work. Well, we can with your help. Thank you, Beth. 888-897-9424.
We've got just 3 to go in the next couple of minutes. Be one of those 3. Like Jack said, be the hero. Give us that call or go online. Make sure your support is being counted right now. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424. You can put the fun in Fun Friday when you give us that contribution right now. Pick up that fleece hat with your $5 a month sustaining contribution. The important thing is that you do it right now. And thank you.
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 3.
Support for GBH comes from you and Emerson Colonial Theater with a Broadway production of Jason Robert Brown and Alfred Urey's musical Parade, coming to Boston for 2 weeks, this March 11th through March 23rd. Tickets at emersoncolonialtheater.com. And Elephant Energy, specializing in all-electric heat pumps from Mitsubishi Electric. Elephant Energy helps homeowners looking to reduce their carbon footprint. Learn more at elephantenergy.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org.
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 3 of Boston.
Mr. President, do you have a reaction to the new Time magazine cover that has Elon Musk sitting behind your resolute desk?
タイムマガジンにイーロン・マスクが大統領の机の後ろで座っている写真がありますけども、それに関するコメントは何かありますか?
Is Time magazine still in business? I didn't even know that.
Trump then defended his close advisor Elon Musk, the man now in charge of the entity called the Department of Government Efficiency.
He's finding tremendous fraud and corruption and waste. You see it with the USAID, but you're going to see it even more so with other agencies and other parts of government.
Meanwhile, congressional Democrats are warning of potential conflicts of interest when it comes to Musk's role in the federal government. NPR's Windsor Johnson reports that Musk owns companies, including SpaceX, that have billions of dollars in federal contracts.
When questioned about Elon Musk's government contracts, the White House says that he will police his own conflicts of interest. Kathleen Clark is a professor at Washington University in St. Louis.
It's absurd to rely on Elon Musk to recognize and then respond to his own conflicts of interest. The only place in the federal government that relies on officials to police their own conflicts is the U.S. Supreme Court.
According to usaspending.gov, SpaceX received more than $19 billion in federal contracts since 2008. In 2024, Musk's company received nearly $4 billion. Windsor Johnston, NPR News, Washington.
More than 24 House Democrats tried to push their way into the Department of Education this morning to speak with senior leaders about Trump's plan to eliminate the agency.
Acting secretary for a meeting and to answer a simple question. And she is apparently...
Security locked the doors before the Democratic lawmakers could enter. House Republicans are racing to unveil a new framework for a budget plan as early as today. NPR's Claudia Grisales has the latest.
House Republican leaders, including Speaker Mike Johnson, met at the White House for about 5 hours on Thursday in hopes of reaching a final plan. President Trump was part of the first hour of the meeting, urging the group to get it done. Senate leaders are also racing to put together their own proposal to be unveiled during a meeting with Trump in Florida this weekend. The spending plan is expected to include provisions to fund new projects along the U.S.-Mexico border, extend tax breaks approved during Trump's first term, as well as other campaign promises. Claudia Grisales, NPR News.
U.S. stocks are trading lower this hour. The Dow is down 300 points. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Craig Lamolt. The U.S. Department of Education says it's investigating the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association over its transgender athlete policy. The move follows an executive order by President Trump barring transgender athletes from girls' and women's sports. GBH's Esteban Bustillos has more.
The investigation stems from an incident last year where several players were injured in a girls' high school basketball game that featured a transgender player. Chris Urchel is with the group GLBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders and expects pushback against the president's order. He says the group is currently litigating a case in New Hampshire where a separate law effectively bans transgender athletes from girls' sports.
And our clients would not see any relief if this executive order were to go into effect or to stay in effect. And so we are prepared to fight.
The State Interscholastic Athletic Association says it's seeking advice from the Office of the Attorney General on next steps. Esteban Bustillos, GBH News, 89.7.
Legacy preferences in college admissions are on the way out. A new report from the nonprofit Education Reform Now found that more than half of colleges that once gave alumni families a leg up have dropped the practice. Since 2015, about 450 schools have ended legacy admissions. Some older, wealthy, and highly selective schools, mostly in the Northeast, are still holding on. saying the children of alumni have a special bond to their institutions. Higher ed researcher James Murphy says that's a problem.
So many people getting into these colleges have so many advantages already in life. To throw one more on top is just, it's insane. And the attempts to justify it are equally insane and make us think, who are the people in these institutions? What are they thinking?
Murphy says if colleges want to rebuild public trust, ditching legacy preferences would help. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from BetterHelp, committed to making mental well-being a priority and offering support in taking on everything life demands, with therapists available to communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public.
Houston Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be joined in just a couple of seconds by the Governor of the Commonwealth. Maura Healey is going to be with us for the hour, taking our questions and yours. And we want a little preview. Next Wednesday, Mayor Michelle Wu, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, will join us right here at the library at 11 o'clock. Same deal, our questions and yours. Hello again, Jim.
Hi there. Hello, Governor. Oh, whoops, she's not here yet.
I think she is right across the street. Chatting.
She is coming.
Well, here she is.
And in fact, that would be the governor.
Hello, Governor Healey. Thank you so much.
Welcome, Governor. For the rest of the show today, Governor Maura Healey is here for February's edition of Ask the Governor. If you have a question you'd like to ask the governor, the number to call or text is 877-301-8970. And if you are either here or nearby and would like to ask the question face-to-face, you just go to one of our colleagues, Nicole or Tamsin, who are sitting at that table over there, and they may pick you to ask her a question. Governor Healey, good to see you.
Great to see you, Jim and Marjorie.
Yeah, so Governor Healey, we've talked a lot about the first few days of President Trump's administration, and I know there's probably a million things you don't like, but if there may be some things you do. But can you tell us quickly what you think about these first days?
Some of it's expected. We expected to see an onslaught every day of executive orders and directives and attempts to make news, whether it's on something like the announcement of Gaza or any other number of things. Part of the playbook from the Trump administration, we know, will be to hit us with a daily onslaught of these things. And there's a method to that. There's a purpose to that. There are certain things they want us to be distracted from. And I think that I, as a leader of a state, need to really be focused on what is happening and what is happening to our residents, what's happening to our economy, what's happening to our state as a result of these actions, and what can we do to best protect ourselves. And so, I think that's a challenge for a lot of people right now who feel just, like, whoa, so burdened, maybe numbed, maybe want to tune it all out. And what I would encourage people to do is don't tune it out. Be engaged. And if you see things that are wrong, call members of Congress. Get people to ask. So much of what Donald Trump has been doing to start involves taking the power away from Congress, the constitutional power away from Congress. And that's why it's being challenged in court. But I think, for people to continue to call on Congress to speak up to the constitutional violations is important. I'd say there are some things that are really concerning. One is what he has done with sort of an abdication of presidential responsibility to Elon Musk. That's what's happened, essentially, is we have a co-presidency in the person of Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, with a group of young tech bros, has now invaded government agencies. Basically, now we have the American government hacking into all of our personal data, hacking into the data of our businesses, of our residents, hacking into and with the potential to change code on actual payment systems, everything from the way Social Security payments are directed out to the way small businesses receive their funds. So that is deeply, deeply concerning, the fact that we have a person in Elon Musk, unelected, with unfettered access to all of our information. And as somebody who was once an attorney general who enforced laws to protect people's privacy, who actually sued companies when they gave over personal information wrongfully or allowed themselves to be hacked, to understand what is happening right now in the depths of DOGE is really problematic. We've seen actions in court. I think that's very important. But also know that 40,000 federal employees have already resigned. Why is that a problem? Because it doesn't matter what state you're in. It doesn't matter what party you're a member of. You want to know that somebody's there inspecting your milk, making sure that the roads are safe, making sure that any number of things are done that people in government with experience are there to do. And so, the fact that he's had the impact to drive so many people out of office, and that Elon Musk is driving people out of office, is really bad.
So I'm assuming we're going to get a lot of calls about specific Trumpian policies, so I'm just going to raise one. We talked on the show about anticipatory obedience, when really powerful people and organizations kowtowed to Trump before he even took office on January 20th. He puts out this executive order against DEI, and powerful institutions, even private companies, cower in his midst. We in Massachusetts have this great supplier diversity program that under you and Governor Baker, allows us to improve the numbers that used to be abysmal for state contracting with people of color and women. The Mass Commission on the Status of Women, the Mass Office of Diversity and Equal Opportunity. I have a long list and you have a longer list. What happens to all these things when Donald Trump and his people say, you don't get rid of diversity-related things, you don't get your federal dollars?
Well, I go back to Roger Goodell and his comments earlier this week. I think that Roger Goodell, as commissioner of the NFL, really got it right when he talked about the value of diversity and what it brings to organizations, what it brings to the bottom line in some instances, and what it brings in terms of having both better policies out there in the world and also better results. We're not going to change what we're doing with respect to any of these programs. These are important state programs. We're going to continue with that and continue to support those who are engaged in that work.
Even if he says to you, or through one of his people, he says, your X $100 million in federal funding for Y disappears unless the supplier diversity program disappears. What do you say?
We faced some of that before in 2016. All of that will have to be looked at grant by grant, program by program. But I want to be clear that as governor, I value diversity and inclusion. I value equity. I know many join in that. It's important for who we are as a state. It's important for who we are as a country. I applaud businesses that are standing up to efforts to minimize or sideline or silence diversity efforts. We've come so far and we've made so much progress, and there's, it is really, really upsetting to see what is happening. But we're going to continue to do what we've done as a state and continue to value these things and support these programs and the personnel, by the way, who are engaged in these efforts.
Let's take some calls for the governor.
Let's go to Mark in Westwood. Hi, Mark.
Hello, Mark.
Good afternoon, Madam Governor and Jim and Marjorie.
Hey, Mark.
Hi.
I would like to talk about the condition of the rest area on Route 95 north in Mansfield. There used to be a building there that's been closed for years, and it's been replaced with porta potties that haven't been cleaned for days. There's needles in the porta potties. The parking lot itself is in very poor shape, lots of potholes. The lighting is inadequate, and there are people living in their cars at this rest area. I travel back and forth from Rhode Island quite often, and I don't feel safe, especially at night pulling into this rest area. And it's the first thing that people see when they travel up from the south into Massachusetts, and I think it's just an absolute embarrassment.
So what's your question,
Mark? I wonder
Mark?
if there might be anything that could be done to try and improve the conditions at this rest area.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for the call. I'll raise it with my Department of Transportation secretary, and we'll have somebody get out there and take a look at it. I can tell you this, Mark, as well, that in our budget recently, I have proposed a historic level of funding for our transportation system. That includes our service plazas and service areas. It includes $8 billion of funding for roads and bridges, for modernization of the T and commuter rail, and any number of things that people need, including regional transit authorities. So it's just to say that's also related, Mark. You're bringing up the condition of service plazas, and I want people to know that our team has been really, really focused since we began on a couple of things. Building more housing in the state, which is why I released the statewide housing plan. First time a governor's ever done that. And second, to make historic investments in transportation, because we need to do that. Mark, I take public safety seriously, and certainly, we'll get the team right on that.
We have a housing call. Why don't we take that, and then you can explain what you announced. Norman, you are in Needham, and you have a housing issue you'd like to raise with the governor, and then she'll fill in the blanks. Norman, welcome to the show. Norman. Norman on line 4 in Needham. Can we go to Norman? He's got a housing question, please. Thank you, Norman. Hi.
Hi. Thanks, Jim. Good afternoon, Jim and Marjorie, and good afternoon, Governor Healey. It's a pleasure and an honor to speak with you.
Hi, Norman.
Hi. First, I wanted to thank you for all of your support in housing initiatives, including announcing the plan that you did yesterday. And I would like to offer for your consideration 3 possible initiatives going forward.
Got to be quick, though, Norman.
The first would be you have eliminated the payment of broker fees for tenants, which I think is a great step. But still, a tenant might have to pay basically 3 months of rent. The first month.
Okay, we know. So I don't mean to be disrespectful. Tell us 2 and 3, please, Norman.
Before they can move in, and some people might be able to make them the monthly rent, but not
Norman.
3 months at the same time. Especially at the
broker's
beginning.
fees is
And-
one.
and
I don't
would
think
like
he can hear you.
Okay, we got to put him on hold. I'm sorry, and maybe tell Norman if he can't
I don't
hear
think
us.
he can hear you.
Do you want to maybe mention the broker's fee thing, because I know you filed something, and then if you could tell people what you did, I think yesterday, Governor.
Yeah, one of the things we're really sensitive to is the cost of housing, the cost of rent. One thing we got to do immediately is get rid of broker's fees that are then passed on to tenants. It's hard enough to have to do first and last month's rent, security deposits, so let's take that off the table. If landlords want to pay it, great, but tenants shouldn't have to.
How does that happen?
I'm sorry.
Getting rid of broker's fees, how does that happen?
Oh, it's a proposal that we made. Ultimately, it's got to get passed by the legislature, but we think there's a lot of support for it.
What'd you do on housing yesterday, yes?
Okay, so look, if there's one thing you maybe know about me, I'm not about kicking the can, and our team is not about kicking the can. We may not always make the right call, but we're going to try. And one of the things that we inherited as a crisis in our state is the fact that for years we haven't been building enough housing. And that's why we last year worked really hard to propose and get passed a $5 billion bill to build more housing around the state. It's why we're looking at state-owned property to see what we can do to convert that into housing, why we're doing things like ADUs, these accessory dwelling units that now communities under our proposal can do by right in community just to bring online more units. It's why we're looking at old mills or office spaces and working with developers to incent them to turn these places into housing. It's also, I thought, very important that we actually demonstrate and show to the public region by region what the needs are so that communities can work with us on getting more housing. Why do we need this? I want our young people to be able to stay in Massachusetts. I want our grandparents to be able to stay in Massachusetts when they downsize and not have to leave our state because they can't afford another place to go. I want our businesses to be able to recruit and retain employees and also expand here. So I commissioned an analysis done by a broad array of stakeholders. They came back to me with both a plan and a report on what we're lacking and an actual strategic plan on what we need to do. The upshot is that we need to build over the next 10 years 225,000 housing units. Some of this will be new construction, some of it will be renovation or rehabilitation of existing housing. But we need to do this. I'm grateful to everybody who worked on this, and we are really, really dead set on getting this done.
Can I ask you one quick question? I called a couple of my friends who were housing activist types, 3 of them, and all 3 had good things to say about what you did, but all 3 mentioned, and I want to know if this is right, that there's nothing in your proposal that's specifically targeted to low-income homeowners. Is that true, or is that not true?
That's not true. For low-income residents, there are a lot of residents who are low
Residents.
income. Right. I'll tell you, one thing we do immediately is we work to bring online 40,000 units of public housing that right now are sitting empty because they've been allowed to degrade for year after year after year, so they're now uninhabitable. So one thing we propose is quickly renovating those 40,000 units, freeing up, and that'll house 40,000
That was part of your
low-income
bond bill. That was part of the $5 billion bond thing.
Exactly.
But I meant yesterday, they were saying yesterday, your announcement about the 220,000 units. Was anything specifically earmarked or set aside for low-income potential homeowners?
Yeah, I think it covers all homeowners or all potential homeowners or residents, because some of this involves rental property. And it is also to say, though, Jim, we've done a lot already. I mean, just with what we did last year in our tax package, we gave tax credits to developers who in gateway cities were going to be developing more housing. And just with that action, we've already increased housing production in gateway cities by 600%. So we've been able to move the needle some on this already. ADUs, for example, this is like your garage. You can convert into a housing unit that you could rent, for example. If we did that in 1 year alone, we could bring online 8,000 to 10,000 housing units. Okay, so there's a lot of ways we can get there. We're out there enforcing the MBTA Communities Act. The good news on all of that, and thank you to Shrewsbury the other night, we're up to 116 communities have said yes to new housing, which is good. This is about vibrancy. This is about growth. This is about economic viability and sustainability for our state. It is not one size fits all. Each community is different in terms of how they want to do the housing. But if we don't build more housing, if we don't bring more housing online, we're going to lose people, we're going to lose employers, and we will suffer.
There's a caller who coincidentally is next who wants to talk about that MBTA law. That's Maxwell and Needham. You're on with the Governor of the Commonwealth. Welcome.
Hi, Maxwell.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Sure.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Maxwell.
Yep.
Hello.
Go.
So with the MBTA Communities Act, it's obviously been very successful, but I'm wondering if you think it's enough on zoning reform. Do you think there's something else you could do? I mean, a lot of towns have passed it, and it's really not going to move the needle. So it's a success in some areas, but I'm wondering what's next? Is there another version down the pipeline?
Thanks, Maxwell.
Well, I appreciate the comment, Maxwell. Look, the first thing we had to do is sort of, make sure that cities and towns were doing what they needed to do around zoning reform. The other piece of this, and it's something that we started on last year, is actually getting stuff built. Because it's one thing to say you're zoned for building. It's another thing to say, here's the tools that you need to go ahead and build. And that's in the face of inflation and higher costs when it comes to construction. So our $5 billion bond bill that we did, the Affordable Homes Act, helps incent some of that development, helps make the math work with developers, and hopefully that means more shovels in the ground sooner on this housing development. So, what I've said to the team is, it's not so much about more or additional legislation this year. It's about implementing the good legislation that we got done, right? And moving forward with all of that. And that's why I'm excited about the plan that we announced and also the strategies associated with it.
So last year I read something into something and I was wrong. I saw a ring on your ring finger. I said, "Are you married?" And the answer was no. You're not married. Are you married?
No.
Okay. Today, you're wearing for the first time, you've been on the show for almost 11 years, Attorney General and Governor. You're wearing a sort of a fleece thing that has an image of the State House, and beneath it, it says Team Healey Driscoll. So let me make another leap and tell me if this one, are you about to announce that you're running for re-election?
Well, the reason, that was kind of what was in the, I got up this morning, I'm very much in work mode. There's a lot going on. So some mornings you just got to get right to it, right? And this was like easy, off the rack, off the shelf, my comfy fleece, and my sneakers today, by the way, because we are, we're running, there's a lot we got to get done. Your question
Are
about...
you running for re-election?
I intend to run for
You
re-election.
do?
Yeah.
Well, talk about
absolutely.
that for a second.
Well, there's a lot that... look, I'm really proud of the record so far. I feel like, when Kim and I started, we laid out in our inaugural address things that we wanted to do. We wanted to get after housing, and we wanted to get after transportation. We wanted to cut taxes. We wanted to make investments in education. And I feel like we've done all those things. And yet there's a heck of a lot more to do. And so I plan to run for re-election because there's a lot more to do. I love my job. I feel incredibly privileged to be in this position. And I'd love to have the opportunity to continue to work for the great people of this state.
You made me think of something I should have thought to ask you before about when we were talking about Trump and these executive orders and getting rid of the Department of Education and stuff like that. What will that mean if he does do that to funding for Massachusetts schools? We get a lot of federal money.
We sure do. $2 billion in federal funds come to support things like your Title I program, special ed, and so much more. $2 billion from the federal government. So obviously, we're really concerned about what that could mean. And, I'll just say, the things that I look at, what people have got to understand, I think, what he's done with allowing Elon Musk in there to antagonize and essentially drive out or fire federal employees who we rely on every day. These are people who are working in VA hospitals providing primary care. These are people doing all the health and safety inspections. These are people administering programs like Social Security and Medicaid and the like that a lot of Americans depend on. The other thing he did that Donald Trump did last week was cut off federal funds. Mm-hmm. So overnight, we had frozen money that is funding our daycare centers, our child care centers, our community health centers, grants and programming for law enforcement, for our military, for veterans, money that is supposed to flow to help our seniors pay heating bills in what has been a cold time here in New England. Now, the AGs took President Trump and the administration to court to stop that, but that case continues. And I can tell you, even today as we speak, we have not had funding turned back on for a number of areas. And that is very disruptive. It's harmful to our state, to our residents, to our businesses, and to our economy. And that, unfortunately, is what we find ourselves up against right now.
That's in defiance of this injunction.
Correct. So I expect the state AGs to take the administration to court for contempt. But, I think what's important is that happened. But what's important for people to know is that the federal administration, your federal administration right now, continues to cut off funds and the flow of funds to our states. And when I say states, I'm talking about people. Because at the end of the day, the money that we get as a state doesn't go into some big vault somewhere. What it does is it goes out the door immediately to residents, to people who need that money, to not-for-profits, to seniors, to young people, to families, to veterans, to service members, to those with disability, any number of the people. And so, it's something that people need to be really clear-eyed about what's happening, and that's why I continue to call on people to call members of Congress to speak out to stop this, because it's also in violation of Congress's powers. Congress appropriates the dollars, right? The president doesn't do that. It's Congress that has already appropriated these dollars, and now we have, in the person of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, efforts to stop the flow of federal funding to our states and to our people.
Evie and Ashley, you're on with Governor Maura Healey. Thank you for calling.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm calling about HIF, the Healthy Incentives Program, and hoping that it can be fully funded. And I'm going to kind of give a little bit of background.
Quickly, please.
Are you hearing an echo?
I'm sorry. We know you do.
No.
We don't. So if you can bear with us.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Evie.
Okay. That's all right. So there in North Central Mass, there is a food system that is set up to support food insecure producers or farmers and facilitated by a nonprofit, Growing Places, which orchestrates the distribution, the storage, and is facilitating some really incredible programs of food as medicine, farm to school, and the hit on HIP being cut back is really impacting the wonderful work that they're doing.
So, Evie, if we can, let's hear what the governor has to say about the HIP program. Thank you for your call, Governor.
Oh, Evie, this is a wonderful program, and I want it to be funded. Addressing food insecurity is absolutely something we need to be doing in the state. It's why, as governor, I brought forward free school lunch, free breakfast for every child in the state. We've supported our farmers. We've supported these networks like the one in Central Mass that Evie speaks of. It's also the case, we're dealing with budgetary issues here. The costs have gone up. It's like they've gone up for families. They've gone up when it comes to Medicare, right? And that's 55% of Medicaid and Medicare. Our HHS, that's 55% of our budget. So we're trying to work through this, Evie, and see if we can get some help from the federal government. I want to see these programs continue. I know how important they are to families and to that ecosystem, and we want to try to do everything we can to make sure we are continuing to fund. The question is at what level, right? And that's something that we've got to work through right now.
Evie, thank you for your call.
Apparently, President Trump said on social media, quote, "I will be signing an executive order next week ending the ridiculous Biden push for paper straws, which don't work, back to plastic." That is part of his overall screw the environment perspective. I don't know if he believes climate change is a hoax or if he just lies about it. But in any case, it's concerning a lot of people, including Dylan in Jamaica Plain, who wants to know, as climate change programs are under attack by Trump, what are you doing to fight back and keep these programs going in the meantime? President Trump has also put the kibosh on building any more charging stations for electric cars.
Yeah. This is why we need the advocacy, and the advocacy to those in Congress who can stop this. Your state will continue to operate the programs that we operate and that we fund, but we are not going to be able to pick up the tab on federal funds that are taken away for climate, for infrastructure, for education, for transportation, for healthcare. I need to be really direct with the public about that, because a lot of people are coming to us saying, "What are you going to do?" Come to the state, and as if we have tight budgets. I think that we just need people to understand this is exactly why you need to be speaking out to members of Congress, so that money that has been appropriated, for example, we have well over $100 million right now in a Solar for All program. This is a program that we expect to have great benefit. It's going to save 30,000 households across Massachusetts, an additional 20% on energy bills. It's also going to create 3,000 climate jobs in Massachusetts, construction jobs, installation jobs. This program right now has been shut down by the Trump administration over the order of a federal judge. And it's this kind of effort. He's frozen funding to remove PFAS pollutants from our drinking water, and that's going to stand in the way of communities from Great Barrington to Barnstable from making the important infrastructure investments that they need to make for their communities. He's frozen funding to clean up contaminated Superfund sites in towns like Attleboro and Danvers. There's a water pollution issue in Chicopee right now that we had funding from the federal government to move forward on. We're talking about basic health, of communities. We can't move forward on because they've frozen the funding. So, I just and the price tag for all of these things. When I said federal funding, I just thought, what was my budget, Jim? It's $56 billion thereabouts.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Well, you would know. I
yeah,
think.
And just imagine. I mentioned $2 billion for education alone. We estimate there could be losses of Medicaid funding up to $5 billion alone. Understand, we don't have reserves or wherewithal to make up for this, which is why it's very important for people across Massachusetts and across this country to understand what these cuts mean and how important it is that they get the administration to reverse these positions.
Governor, but of course, it's very difficult to reverse those positions if you have a Republican Senate and House that is with them.
Well, Republican, Democrat. I mean, you know how many people live in so-called red states who need access to Medicaid, who need access to, special ed and Title I services, who actually want, I think most people, who in this country doesn't want to have clean water, right? Who wants to drink polluted PFAS, infused water? Yeah. I don't think anybody does. So I think there's commonality around this stuff. And that's what we've got to talk about.
877-301-8097. Before we get back to the calls, John Chesto at the Globe did some great reporting a couple of years ago about overpayments from the federal government. We don't have to go into the cause on unemployment. There was a story by John Chesto a couple of weeks ago that you cut a deal with the Biden administration on the Friday before Trump was sworn in to save the state somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion, taxpayers, et cetera. In the article that John wrote about it, he was talking about reforming the system and then brought up the issue of possibly a possible reduction of jobless benefits. And here's your quote: "That's something I want to learn more about. I'm taking nothing off the table." So to be clear, reducing jobless benefits is something you'd consider to bring more health into the unemployment system?
I'm not prepared to say that yet. What I am prepared to say is that we inherited, as an administration, one of the surprises that we came to learn about when I started as governor is that our UI system through the prior administration, the Baker administration, had not been running something correctly. And as a result, we were in the hole to the federal government over $2.5 billion, with interest and penalties over $3 billion. So that was not a great surprise. So we got to work on figuring out what we needed to do. We were able to successfully advocate with the federal government, with the Biden administration, to reduce that balance by over a third. And I've also, which is a very good thing, and also I've said that the UI system generally, which has been underfunded for years, or fragile, right, for years, I think we're 47th in the country in terms of that. We need to bring all stakeholders together, and maybe we can use, as we should with any crisis, right? How do you turn this into an opportunity? How do you make it better, going forward? How do you then do the reforms that we need? And so I don't have the answers yet, but my commitment is to work with the business community, to work with employers, to work with employees and unions and others affected by this system, to have a real conversation about what needs to be done, and that's how I see it at this point.
Let's go to Bill in Chelmsford. You're on with Maura Healey, Governor of the Commonwealth. Welcome, Bill.
Hi, Governor, and Marjorie and Jim. Thank you for taking my call. As just a preface to this, I was a firefighter EMT for 30 years, and I saw many accidents at lighted traffic signal intersections. And I know recently, Governor, you supported allowing cameras and speed checks at these intersections. I'm wondering if you'd consider supporting and maybe introducing legislation that would lower the speed limit at all at all intersections that have traffic lights. This would do two things. It would make it easier for enforcement, because police across the Commonwealth would know that every traffic intersection with lights has a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, although some could be adjusted for the locale. But also, people entering these intersections in the cars they're driving today are entering at such a higher speed that they don't stop, not sometimes because they don't want to, but because they can't.
Thank you. And is it Bill?
Bill, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is Bill. Yes.
All right, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Bill, thanks for the call. So, what you're referring to is that I propose that we give cities and towns the power, the authority, if they want to put speed cameras in their cities and towns, to deal with real public safety issues around speeding and reckless driving, that they have that power. And I think that makes sense. I think it makes sense to give power to our cities and towns to do that. And because they're the ones, Bill, that actually control the actual rules around speed limits, it'd be for them to decide whether or not it makes sense to take you up on your offer. But I appreciate you putting out to the discourse suggestion, something like that, especially based on your real world experience.
Bill, thanks for the call. Governor, one of the crises you've had to deal with almost throughout your whole administration is the emergency shelter situation in terms of the human cost, the financial cost, et cetera. I think it was yesterday the House of Representatives passed a measure that, correct me anywhere that I'm wrong, reduces the cap in terms of the number of people, reduces the time that those people can stay in emergency shelter, and changes the eligibility rules. And the one thing I am totally unclear about that I'm hoping others need answers to, too, what non-citizens are eligible to get emergency shelter under this bill? The only that I could ascertain from brief reading was where the parents of a kid who was born in the United States, and thus he or she has citizenship. Other than that, what non-citizens under the House version of this emergency shelter reform would still be eligible to participate and get housing?
Well, we got to go see what the House does, and then of course it moves to the Senate.
Right.
And so, we don't have a final word on that. But what I've tried to explain to people from the beginning, Jim, is that we are the only state in the country that has this right to shelter law that requires the state to house women and children and families when and if they become homeless. And what we've seen, because we've got a national housing crisis and a lot of people are facing housing insecurity, we've also seen failed immigration policies at the border. So we've seen more migrants come across and make their way up to Massachusetts. We saw our emergency shelter swell, and that happened under my prior administration. The Baker administration saw those numbers grow, and then they grew the last couple of years. What we've done is institute reforms to bring those numbers down. So the actual cap that the House is proposing is in line with where we think we're going to end up, because we're already seeing a reduction because we have better case management. We're intervening with families sooner. We've done job training and placement for folks. We're getting them services and getting them out of emergency shelter, which was intended to be temporary, right? Not something permanent. When I started as governor, we had people who were living and have been living in hotels with their kids for years, right? So we are trying to make proposals that make this system function better for our families. They're actually also going to have the effect of bringing costs down. And so we're going to continue to work with the legislature on this.
But are there categories of people who are not citizens, temporary protected status, people who are victims of domestic violence, other than a non-citizen whose kid was born here, that you would want to be eligible in a final version?
No, the way this works, and I am very sensitive to victims of domestic violence, people who are fleeing abuse, fleeing fire and flood, and need a home. I mean, that always has to be the case, that we need support for those folks. I think it's also the case that people who are taxpayer supported have to be folks who have an intent to stay here in Massachusetts, that they aren't just getting evicted from an apartment in Pawtucket and driving north to our DTA office in Attleboro and saying, Massachusetts, house me.
Got it.
We only have so much in terms of funding. And right now, more than half the families who are in our shelter system are Massachusetts families, meaning like they're homegrown Massachusetts families. They've been here, they've grown up here, and for whatever reason, they've ended up in a situation needing an emergency shelter. We need to continue to provide that. That includes, by the way, people who are United States citizens and people who are living here who are not United States citizens. But we've got to continue to work this problem through with the legislature. I want people to know that we are reducing numbers. We're seeing exits from our emergency shelter system on the order of 400 to 500 families every month. And that's because people are working really hard, getting people connected with resources, with jobs, with services for their kids, into a more permanent housing situation, which isn't a hotel, which is also why I've said we're closing hotels. It's not good for anybody, right? And it turns out it's also very expensive. So, it's been a challenging situation. It wasn't helped by the failure of Congress to act on the border issue, but the problems with our EA system in this state predated issues with the border. These go back, years, decades, and what we're trying to do is basically pass reforms that will make this an effective and sustainable program for Massachusetts families.
You know, Governor, I've been reading the text, and we're getting a lot of texts from people that are concerned about what will happen with their child's program, autism program. I guess that would come under Special Ed 766, or about adult day shelters, or about services that they're able to get right now, social services kinds of things, especially for their children. What you said before is I think correct, but maybe you should underscore it, because people seem they're going to think you're going to be able to, state's going to rescue them here in Massachusetts. That's not possible.
It's not possible, and it's unfortunate that we as a state are in this position. It breaks my heart to know that families are stressed out and worried right now about what's going to happen to their kids, what's going to happen to their aging parent, what's going to happen to their family member with a disability. We've got so many families around our state, around this country, who depend on programs that have been federally funded. And that's why I'm asking people to contact their members of Congress and congressional leaders to take action, to stand up to the Trump administration and Elon Musk, frankly, who's in there with his 19 and 20-year-old tech bros trying to build, quote, efficiencies, when I think what they're doing is, and what they've already done, is probably downloaded everybody's information. So note, if you're a business here in Massachusetts and you have taxpayer ID, you have any information that you've filed with the federal government, they've got all that. And Elon Musk has all that. And is he going to use it to his advantage, to manipulate more markets, or to further advantage himself? I don't know. We have zero information about what's happened. You know, your Social Security numbers, all of your personal identifiable information that is with any federal agency is now in the hands of Elon Musk and the 19 and 20-year-olds. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but you know, when it comes to like basic things, that programs that people rely on, this is what is being taken away, is being frozen, is being cut, is on the chopping block, is being threatened. And it's really important for people to speak up and tell the story about like how dependent they are on these programs. As governor, I'm going to do all that I can, right? My administration will do all that we can. But at the end of the day, we do not have taxpayers, Massachusetts taxpayers, our general fund. It's not big enough to cover these holes. It cannot begin to make up these differences and these shortfalls. And that is the very scary reality that we're facing.
Let's go to Margaret in Newton.
Hi, Margaret.
You, Margaret, for
Hey.
calling.
Hi, hi, Governor. Congratulations on signing the big long-term care bill in September. We have been waiting for that for decades. But many needs remain, and I would just like to talk about one of them today. It's the personal needs allowance for residents of nursing homes. There are 20,000 of them, and all they get to keep is $78.20 a month. And that's supposed to pay for anything they want, a toy for a grandchild or pizzas for a family visit. And it has not kept up with inflation. All it needs to do is to go up to $113. That's all we're asking now. And that would be about $11 million out of the state budget. So would you support this? Would you put it in the budget?
Well, thanks, Margaret, for your call, and I certainly was proud to sign the long-term care bill and appreciate all the advocacy on that over the years. I just filed my budget. I don't know where we stood in terms of what we filed for a figure for that program, but I certainly will take it back to the team and encourage you to talk to the legislature, because the budget is now with them.
Speaking of the legislature, as you know, Governor, a mere 72% of the voters supported the ballot question to audit the legislature. We know there issues. What's your reaction as the leader of the state to two things? One, the almost uniform resistance on the part of the legislative leaders to being audited. And two, what was your reaction when you heard the Senate president compare the auditor to Donald Trump in terms of her desire to carry out what 72% of the voters wanted her to do?
Well, I didn't hear that comment or the context of that comment. And in terms of the auditor, I mean, I have my own relationship, as my administration does, with the auditor. We comply with audits. They happen regularly. And in terms of the legislature's position on that, I'll let them speak for themselves on that.
Did you vote for it? Andrea Campbell said she did the other day. Did you vote for it?
I support it.
You did vote for it?
Yeah.
Can you talk about something much more upbeat than a lot of what we talk about? There's about to be a poet laureate in Massachusetts. We hear it. We're big time supporters of that.
Yeah, Massachusetts, it's funny because we have more Pulitzer Prize winning poets, more Nobel laureate poets than any other state in the country, and yet a lot of other states have poet laureates. We've never had one. So I signed an executive order the other day that establishes a poet laureate. We're going to have a search committee, and I hope to name one later this spring, and I think that's really important to our state. Poetry is and arts and culture are really important to the fabric of community, and certainly to who we are as folks in Massachusetts. We have some incredible poets that have come out of Massachusetts, and so it's an opportunity to show that off, and also to inspire and engage with creatives and poets here, and younger folks too, who we want to see interested in and supported in poetry.
My favorite poem is actually from a person, Massachusetts, Marge Piercy's To Be of Use. Do you have a favorite poem?
Do I have a favorite poem? I don't think I have a favorite poem.
Favorite poet?
No.
You like poetry?
I like poetry. My mom always read us Robert Frost whenever there was a snowstorm. I grew up in a town that had Longfellow's summer residence. I love Mary Oliver.
Yeah, so do I.
We loved Mary Oliver. There are just so many. I mean, Massachusetts, we've got E. Cummings to Phyllis Wheatley to Emily Dickinson. Right? There's so many. So we'll have a lot of good opportunities to celebrate our poets. Also, we're coming into the beginning of our celebration of the anniversary of the birth of this country and American democracy right here in Massachusetts with the 250th. Other good news, Jim, I'll say that Massachusetts, again, we were ranked #1 in education. And I'm proud of that, and we're gonna continue on that. We know we are still making up for learning loss, especially when it comes to lower income students and students of color across this country. And one of the things I'm excited about in our budget that we included is heavy investments in literacy at the early grades, and also high dosage tutoring. Studies are overwhelming that if you provide young people with even 15 minutes a day of individualized tutoring, a lot of this can be done online in school. It makes a huge difference in their academic trajectory. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about the fact that we're proposing to upgrade our college campuses to the tune of about $2.5 billion so we can build out the labs and the facilities that will attract students and also help us build the workforce that we need. Like the T, our state colleges and universities were underfunded for decades. And so we're going to change that, and just as we've changed that with funding for transportation.
What do you think of Secretary Duffy's idea that if we have more children, we'll get more funding? Should the audience decide to give birth even if they were not planning, if they want the T to run on time?
Yeah, they want you married and having children, both of which are wonderful things. What they have to do with transportation, I don't know. I don't for the life of me
Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
I hope the Eagles.
Thank you.
It pains me to say that a little bit, but as a Patriots fan, I fly, Eagles fly.
Okay, finally.
Did you see Sean Duffy dancing on Real World? They put that online. He was.
She's going to say she didn't see it because he was naked. You saw it, right?
Well, he had a towel over the crucial areas, but he was dancing around.
No, I missed that.
Yeah,
I missed that. I was bothered by Sean Duffy's move the other day, and again, putting Elon Musk in charge of FAA and airline safety. For a guy, Musk, how many? I think he blew up and crashed 90 rockets.
That's right.
Do we ever talk about that? And now he is in charge of the safety of our skies. This is what I'm talking about. And I don't know if the president apprehends what he's actually done here, but this is serious business. It's very consequential, and I just ask people, do not get tired. Do not tune it out. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. I also say to people, what can you do in this time? What are you doing right now to feed poor kids in your neighborhood or your town, or clothe those who need clothes, or help with housing, or reading books on tape, or visiting seniors, coaching a game. It's just community matters, and there's a lot of ways that people can find agency right now. It's important to call members of Congress. It absolutely is, because we've got to stand up and talk about what's going on and the real harm. And it's also, every day, from no matter where we are, we have some power to do what is in front of us. And I just encourage people to do that while taking care of yourselves.
Tomorrow your birthday?
Yeah.
Margie and I spared no expense.
Yes.
No expense.
I love that.
GBH 897. Is this not violating the law, is it?
No, it's. I definitely think it looks like it's under $50. But this is going to be awesome because we've got snow coming this weekend.
That's right. It's very warm.
Thank you to all of those who were out there plowing and sanding and salting and protecting us. And be careful out there on the roads this weekend. Look in on your neighbors. Make sure that they're safe and have what they need. And always great to see. I look forward to being back.
Happy birthday. We'll see you soon.
Governor, lots
Healey.
of people are texting to say they're very, very grateful that you will come and
Look
spend
at
an hour
this
with
woman
us.
here.
Oh, she looks adorable.
Get a photograph
Perfect. It is
quickly.
perfect. Thank you very much, Governor Healey, for coming in. Okay, we're out of time, so we're going to just really briefly thank everybody for coming down here today. Thank you for listening to us. On Monday, we're going to have GOP Chair Amy Carnevale and Mass Democratic Chair Steve Kerrigan is going to be with us. Axios Boston Business Reporter Dan Premack and Boston Medical Center's Dr. Catherine Gergen-Barnett, plus the Reverend Zion Monroe and Emmett G. Price III. Thanks to everybody, our crew here at the library, crew across the street, and the Newsfeed Cafe. Stay tuned for the Culture Show's Week in Review, which starts right at 2 o'clock here on 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
And you are listening to Boston Public Radio on 89.7 GBH. I'm Sonia Lee. I'm here with Melissa Jones, 4 minutes before 2 o'clock. And this is a great time to give to support Boston to GBH. That's it. Do it on the Sustainer Plan. It's easy. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
To stay on track right now, we need 12 contributions from 12 people in the next, a couple of minutes. GBH and NPR play a really vital role in delivering trustworthy news that you can rely on. That's why you're listening right now. When you give now, you help ensure that the quality journalism prevails over fake news. Please make your contribution now. 12 people, next couple of minutes, we're looking for you. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And if you have weekly, if not daily, visits with Jim and Marjorie, then this membership drive, it is about you. You count on Boston Public Radio to keep you ahead of the news while providing a good dose of some humor at the same time. Nothing else like it on the radio. We are asking for you to support this programming you only hear on GBH at gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
With your contribution of $5 a month right now, because it's $5 Friday, we would love to thank you with that same set hat that the governor just received. It's a charcoal gray beanie. It's a style cap, folding cuff. It's got the GBH logo embroidered on the front, so it's a quality cap. It's going to keep you warm, stylish, all the great things. Get yours now. They go away today, so don't wait. You won't get it tomorrow. Get it now. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And not only that, you can help meet the goal. We are looking now for just 9 more contributions, 9 more people to go. We have a couple minutes left. So please make that contribution before we get to the Culture Show in support of Jim and Marjorie. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
We've got a thank you for a fan in Gloucester who gave and said, I rely on GBH for up-to-the-minute, honest news reporting. My favorite show is Jim and Marjorie. They give us news, opinions, and hilarity when we most need it. Thank you. Join in with that fan right now, $5 Friday. Give us a call. Make your contribution. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
And this is your last opportunity to pick up the knit hat and take part in $5 Friday and have it count towards Boston Public Radio, gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Comcast Business, committed to providing connectivity for your business with network and cybersecurity solutions. Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. To learn more, you can call or visit comcastbusiness.com. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst Mount Ida campus in Newton, connecting students and employers in Greater Boston and offering on-campus graduate and pre-college programs. Learn more at umass.edu/Mount Ida campus.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News, what matters to you?
Live from the GBH studio at the Boston Public Library, this is the Culture Show's Arts and Culture Week in Review.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is the Culture Show. Coming up today on our Arts and Culture Week in Review, the award for drama surrounding the Oscars goes to Emilia Perez. 2 weeks ago, the movie seemed destined for Oscars gold with 13 nominations. Now, leading actress Carla Sofia Gascon's Academy Awards campaign is in tatters amid a string of controversies that has Netflix and the film's director running in the opposite direction. Plus, some of the greatest poets have called Massachusetts home. From Robert Frost to Robert Pinsky, Emily Dickinson to Tracy K. Smith. But the state didn't have a home for them. That all changed on Monday when Governor Maura Healey signed an executive order creating the role of a poet laureate for Massachusetts. And instead of McGrimacing, it's time to grin and bear it. McDonald's Shamrock Shake is back, and so is its long-lost mascot, who looks like he's gathered some moss. He is the verdant Uncle O'Grimacy. From there, it's an auction with strings attached. A Stratovarius could fetch a record $18 million, all to fund scholarships for New England Conservatory students. How's that for a sound investment? We take on this and more, but first, here's what the week sounded like.
Emilia Perez director Jacques Audiard revealed that he has not spoken to his film star, Carla Sofia Gascon, following her controversial tweets.
It's wonderful to be here today to officially announce, for the first time ever, our state's position of Poet Laureate of Massachusetts.
Uncle O'Grimacy!
Haven't seen Uncle O'Grimacy in a while. He's a fan favorite. In the 70s, he's back and for a great cause. Shamrock Shake is returning.
Ye's wife, Bianca Censori, made quite a fashion statement at the 2025 Grammys, where she donned a large fur floor-length coat. But then she took it off in a shocking moment, revealing she was rocking a nearly nude sheer look.
So this is a 1714 Stradivarius. This is the best violin of this era, and it is going to be sold at Sotheby's on February 7th.
This year, my very big project is performing the complete organ works of Johann Sebastian Bach, which is about 18 hours of music.
What are you doing in there?
We're doing a Dunkin' Donuts commercial, right?
Right.
I'm just trying to find the character. I think I found a way in. You're from Boston, I'm from Boston. Dunkin' is Boston. Boston is Paul Revere. One if by land, two if by sea. Redcoats are coming.
This is the Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Herwick III. We're going over the week's top arts and culture headlines, starting with the film Emilia Perez. Once an Oscars frontrunner with 13 nominations, it's now in a swirl of scandal. Carla Sofia Gascon plays the title character in Emilia Perez and became the first openly transgender actor to receive an Oscar nomination. But now she's facing backlash for a host of inflammatory comments she's tweeted in the past. Her Academy Awards campaign has imploded, with both the film's distributor Netflix and its director Jacques Audiard running in the opposite direction. This is the biggest story in Hollywood right now, and this just keeps unraveling. I can't believe the turn it took from when we were just talking about this last week, and there was a backlash against Emilia Perez, and at that point it was calling out the LGBTQ plus community, calling out the representation of a transgender character that they thought maligned the community. We talked about the film that Mexico made, the short spoof film, calling out the fact that this is a film about cartels that wasn't even shot in Mexico and somewhat trivialized it. And then came this week when people combed through Gascon's tweets and realized that she'd made comments against Islamic people. She'd made comments about the diversity in the Oscars. These are all negative comments about these things. She made negative comments about George Floyd. And so this is why Hollywood is walking away from, who knows if they're walking away from the entire film, but they're certainly walking away from her as an actress.
Yeah, this is bad. and you know, because the film and Gascon was sort of riding on this uphill wave of not just interest but admiration. You know,
sure.
Those words that she spoke at the Golden Globes when she won, that seemed, you know, to bring everybody in and to make a statement about, you know, not being exclusive. And here we are with this. I'm going to read one of her tweets. This is, you know,
careful now.
This
Be
is
careful,
fairly,
Kelly.
this is fairly innocuous given the whole thing. She says, more and more the Oscars are looking like a ceremony for independent and protest films. I didn't know if I was watching an Afro-Korean festival, a Black Lives Matter demonstration, or the 8M. Apart from that, an ugly, ugly gala. And there's more where that came from.
Yeah, that was the 2021 Oscars.
Right,
I think she
in
she
sharper
tweeted that
language.
after.
So
yeah, I mean, if you want to know the level of this scandal, just watch how the headlines have gone from like individual headlines about things she said to the thing where it's like the controversy explained. Now we're at the point where all the headlines are like timeline of the scandal. So now you know it has like gotten to a certain level. I mean, this is I have found. I mean, this is bad. There's no question about it. But I do think to a certain extent. And we're obviously in different territory now. As Jared, as you were just explaining, you know, initially there was a lot of conversation around some of these issues that had to do with the film itself. But I did find the conversation that was happening around that to be somewhat valuable. And I think right now, you know, some of the conversation that's happening right now is about the tricky nature and the pitfalls to a certain extent of the idea of making people who are people in all of their complexities and have good and bad inside of them, reducing them to symbols. And I think for some people, they look at this, and this is an actress who achieved something that I think a lot of people want to celebrate, which is to say was the first openly trans actor to be nominated. That is a great thing. But in becoming a symbol, that you know, you can't necessarily assume that person who achieved something does not hold a bunch of complexity in them and is therefore necessarily on your side on all issues. And I think that there's a lot of conversation right now about that, and I think that's healthy.
Well, let me pick up on that just one sentence, because this is a person who didn't go out trying to be the symbol.
Of course.
And if you are in those situations where you're in protest movements and you set yourself out to be the symbol, you got to be clean.
Yes.
Clean. You have to be, there is none of that. So here she is. She didn't know she was going to end up being a symbol. And, you know, she wasn't prepared.
But
so
she's riding the wave.
She is riding the wave.
And she was an actor in Mexico in telenovelas, so is used to being a public figure and hasn't certainly had the scrutiny that comes with being a Best Actress nominee. So people often, I don't love award ceremonies anymore, and anymore is the key. When I was a kid, I loved to get up and hear about who won the Oscars because I had too early a bedtime. My parents wouldn't let me stay up.
You were such a good kid, Jared.
And then when I was allowed to stay up, I loved watching the Oscar ceremony. But then I lifted up the hood at one point, and then I realized everything that we're talking about is what the Oscars are. So much of this is about a business. We keep talking about the campaign. There's a campaign for Best Actress right now. Well, this is not unlike politics, where you have millions and millions and millions of dollars that are being spent by Netflix so they can promote Emilia Perez to win Best Picture, and they can promote her to win Best Actress. Because it was being run like a campaign, like you might run a presidential campaign or a gubernatorial campaign. You do what you do in campaigns, and you do vetting. They didn't do that here.
Absolutely.
And this is what's so ridiculous about this. And so now people are turning, and then the entire film may go down in flames, including Zoe Saldana, who gives a terrific performance, is nominated for Best Supporting Actress. But this is, at the end of the day, this isn't about just Hollywood and celebrating movies. This is about putting money into having someone win, and then look at how ugly it gets when somebody doesn't do their job and they recognize that you have somebody here who is very problematic and has said horrible things about people and thought, initially that they didn't even have to defend themselves against that. Again, if you're stepping into the public realm like this, you need to be prepared. But this is what it's really all about.
Well, I would have to agree with you to some extent, having been Oscar nominated and not winning, because those people did not have good taste.
What a huge mistake. Of all the mistakes the Oscars
correct.
have made over the years.
But I just want to pick up on something that Jared said. All the campaigning, like we were completely stunned by that. We thought to the larger extent, this is about quality, about merit.
For eyes on the prize,
yes,
we should mention.
Yes. So I'm thinking, when we discovered the intensity of the campaigning, it was really eye-opening for me as well. So you're right about that. It's a different ball game. There is a lot of money involved in other things. But here she found herself in an unfortunate situation of having to defend all her past stuff, not expecting to. And to your point, if you're going to be in a campaign situation, you better vet everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. That said, I think there's two things here. One, I think that whether or not she ever became a symbol, as we were just talking, or had the attention on her that she had, Jared, I think you made the point. She was a public figure. I mean, these aren't 20-year-old tweets. These aren't 10-year-old tweets. These are from 2020, 2021.
Good point.
At that point, the dangers of social media were, I think, abundantly clear to people. So, she should have been more careful. But what I was saying earlier, I think, is a little bit underscored in that vetting thing. There was a really good Vanity Fair piece, and I'm going to quote from it here, where the author says, "There is something discomfiting about the way Netflix seemed to assume that because Gascon was a pioneer of one progressive cause, that she must be on the right side of all of the others." And I think that is speaking to this larger point here about it's like, yes, they should have vetted, but there is something to be said about why they didn't vet, and we need to be better about that.
Well, I think especially when we understand, we're not repeating a lot of what was said. People can look it up because we're just not going to put it on the air, but it's widespread. This isn't a couple of examples.
That is correct.
This is widespread. This is about a lot of people, and I think there's a lot of hate in this person from what we've seen. And it is a shame because I think there are really strong elements to this film, and it's kind of taking it all down. And you have the director distancing himself, and she is not being in. Netflix is no longer paying for her to go to the Oscar ceremony. She's not really participating at this point in a number of the events. And then you have Oscar voters who are now in this quandary. Do we support the film outside of this, or is it all wrapped up together, and do we just move on to something else like The Brutalist? It's so fascinating.
Yeah, I mean,
in not a great way.
Yeah, it's dangerous to make predictions, but I do have a feeling that most people are going to run away from this whole the baby and the bathwater here. I mean, I think that the whole of this film is going to suffer in terms of its
too bad
Oscar
for Zoe
haul.
Saldana, because
Yeah,
everybody
absolutely.
was thinking she might win.
She is riveting. Yeah. Well, now on to a campaign that hasn't imploded. On the Culture Show, we've been on a bit of a campaign, or at least asking why Massachusetts, a state rich in history, doesn't have a state poet laureate. Soon it will. This week, Governor Maura Healey signed an executive order creating the role. I spoke with her just a couple of minutes ago about what it means to have an official poet laureate in these times.
Because Massachusetts deserves a poet laureate. We're home to the most Pulitzer Prize-winning poets, the most Nobel Prize-winning poets. Many other states have poet laureates. For whatever reason, we haven't had one in our 250-year history, and I think now, with the celebration of 250 years, it's a perfect time to name a poet laureate and lift up all the wonderful things about poetry and arts and culture in our state.
One more quick question. As we always talk about on the Culture Show, the arts show us our times. This is a pivotal time for somebody like a poet laureate. How much did you take that into consideration too?
I think it's a really important time, the context of everything that's happening with our nation, with our world. We learn so much from poets. They inspire, they ground us, and they contextualize things, they enliven things. I think it's a perfect time for us to be doing this. And we're going to have a search on for a poet laureate. So I encourage and welcome submissions. There's so many wonderful candidates, I'm sure. And hopefully this is something that will continue year after year.
And certainly the new poet laureate, this is an application process that will get underway. The applications will be submitted. We'll learn more about that. We'll share how that process unfolds on the Culture Show, and then they will serve a 2-year term, can possibly be re-upped. But this is a critical moment, and it was really pathetic until this week, because we were one of, by different counts, either one of 3 or one of 4 states in this country that didn't have a poet laureate, when we're the home of Phyllis Wheatley and Longfellow and Dickinson and Frost.
Yeah, and I think the only one that never had one. So like Pennsylvania Pennsylvania, New Jersey don't, but at one point they did. Like, we've never had one. I think we were the only state that has never had one.
In a city with 30 colleges and universities as well, let me just say.
There are literally thousands of people writing poetry right around us right now. You know what I mean?
And a state where there are many cities and towns that have their own poet laureate. Yeah. And we just had a very successful one from Boston, Portia Olayiwola, who was just fabulous in terms of her ambassadorship for poetry and all things literary. So, you know, that's what you want. You want to really spread the word in all the places that she did and all the places that the poet laureates of other small towns are doing. And I just can't wait. I'd like to be on the commission. There are 5 slots that the governor has to nominate on the commission. And then there's one from the state Senate's office, one from the executive director of Mass Council, I think, and one for the humanities.
Sounds like we got another campaign on our hands. Let's get Callie. Let's get Callie on the committee. Let's do this.
No, I didn't. I just said I just love to be, just because that's just one of the things I'd like. But it's none of my business. I just report on it when it comes.
Well, I'm sure the governor who just left is listening to this in her car right now.
There you go.
They are saying the person has to come with a substantial body of work. So this will be exciting for Massachusetts, especially given how many poets we have here, how many writers we have here. And we know people will take it very seriously. And I also like that she wrote into this executive order that not only is this person representing the state in a ceremonial role, but they will also carry the notions of poetry forward. And I think most importantly, they're working with schools and education.
Yeah, which is so great. And they're going to get some kind of stipend. And this is like a small thing that can be done. You know, a person's not going to be able to have a full-time job of being the poet laureate, right? Mm-hmm. But it is a little thing, and I would argue I'm happy for my tax dollars to pay for, that keeps this marketplace, so to speak, for writing for poets healthy. Because there are those times where, you know, things happen and you want to be able to turn to a poet, whether it be a ceremony and it calls for it, or whether it be some kind of tragedy or something happening and you need somebody to be able to put voice to that. And I like the idea that we're doing a little something to keep those poets in work and with some money in their pockets so that when we need them, they're there, because it's not an inevitability.
No, it isn't. And that's their task, is to reflect what's going on right now.
Well, we're going to make a wild turn right now, because next, it's hard to miss something you kind of didn't realize was ever there. But that hasn't stopped McDonald's from reintroducing Uncle O'Grimacy this week as it rolls out its Shamrock Shake. He is the long-lost relative of McDonald's Purple Grimace character, who may also have been on a terrorist watch list. We'll get to that if you're streaming online.
A lot of Irish poets, actually. So, Uncle O'Grimacy, Irish poetry, it's there.
If you're streaming online right now, you can see the rendering of Uncle O'Grimacy next to Grimace. Or if you're here, of course, in the Boston Public Library, you can see it on our monitors. Just maybe if you were around in 1975 or before, here's a vintage McDonald's ad featuring this character.
Ronald, everything looks green. Oh, green butterflies. And green footprints.
Uncle O'Grimacy.
Hello, boys. I'm Bach, and I'm painting everything green to match me Shamrock Shakes.
Shamrock Shakes are back? Yummy.
Let's celebrate at McDonald's.
Shamrock Shakes, they're a beautiful green. The most beautiful green that we've ever seen.
Shamrock Shakes, they're a beautiful green. Uncle O'Grimacy.
I can't imagine why that disappeared. But
yeah, he sounds like a real Irishman.
But here, apparently we're having a mascot moment. This is what people are talking about. So they went back into the archives. So they picked up Uncle O'Grimacy, and I think one reason that we should talk about it is that sales of Shamrock Shake, some of the proceeds go to the Ronald McDonald House, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. But this is kind of bizarre, especially when we hear, there was a rumor that went around, it turns out it was spread by The Onion, that the reason he was discontinued 50 years ago is because the actor portraying him was a proponent of the IRA. Well, that was The Onion at work. Uncle O'Grimacy really wasn't that.
I was very fascinated by Fast Company talking about mascots having a moment right now. And, nobody loves Goofy more than me. But this, no, go back again. Who's their marketing? Campaign people. This doesn't make it for me.
Also, I spent some time sort of thinking about this, when we were talking about this, and there is the insane cast of McDonald's characters that have been retired over the years is crazy. You remember Mayor McCheese.
Yes.
I mean, the Hamburglar got a little played lately because of Melania's outfit, right? But there were like the Fry Kids. I mean, it's kind of insane. On a more serious
The good one was the fish, the talking fish.
There was the talking fish.
Now, that was a good one.
No,
Where's that one?
But
Great. Now that song is going to be in my head for the rest of the day.
Here's a more serious interesting.
Sorry.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, a more serious thing I found myself thinking about, and I don't know what the answer to this is, because I don't know if I'm no longer sort of the target audience. I'm certainly not as a kid, but I don't really go to McDonald's that much. I'm probably not necessarily in their target audience. But there was a time, Uncle Grimacy wasn't it, but there was a decades-long period where culturally McDonald's was very important, right? Like with kids because of all of the fun stuff that they did, but also, I mean, I'm sure we all remember in 1990 when that first McDonald's opened in the Soviet Union in Moscow. I mean, that was like this huge cultural, symbolic, like American victory. And I don't know that McDonald's has that kind of cachet anymore. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do.
Well, I think it's why they're trying to pull in people back who drifted away from McDonald's, because of course our eating habits have also drifted, and so they don't have the patronage that they once did. I think they're still a very successful franchise. In fact, I was thinking they should donate more of the proceeds to the Ronald McDonald House, and I think it's 25 cents or something like that out of every sale. But I think that this is their way of tapping into a nostalgia, and I think we are very much in a moment where people just want things to calm down, and they remember times that were a lot calmer, and this suggests that.
I don't know what it suggests, but the McDonald's, the McDonald's that I knew was a company that sponsored our 365 days a year Black History Month program that sponsored all kinds of community events that had the largest number of Black franchises in the country, and they just became one of the people that pulled back on DEI. So maybe they're returning to lots of other things as they.
Look over here, don't look over here strategy.
Exactly.
Yeah. I will tell you that I did thorough research this morning, and I was checking out the Uncle O'Grimacy merch, and you'll be pleased to know that the sweatshirts marked "Who's Your Uncle?" are still available. Yes, Callie, that's kind of the face I had too. If you're streaming, Callie will hold that face, I'm sure, for a couple more seconds.
Now I know what to get you both for your birthdays.
Who's your uncle? You're listening to Arts and Culture Week in Review live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. Coming up, do we want transparency in the fashion industry? We'll expose the story of the nude dress that dominated Grammys coverage. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
And 2:22, and I'm Sonia Lee. I'm here with Zach Finn, and this is the time to make a contribution because it is $5 Friday here on GBH. We're asking you to join as a sustaining member for just $5 a month. That is it. Your ongoing monthly commitment will have a big impact on the programs that you are hearing and that you rely on, like The Culture Show. You can give at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And at GBH, we believe that arts and culture are essential for lifelong learning. Programs like The Culture Show and The Moth inspire creativity and critical thinking in listeners of all ages. And by giving to GBH right now, you're helping to support programs that enrich lives and foster a love for the arts. Every single dollar makes a huge difference. 888-897-9424, online at gbhnews.org.
And right now, the goal is to hear from 10 people. We're looking for 10 people to give during the Culture Show. And we have 37 minutes, so we have a little bit of time, but we're hoping that you don't wait till the very end, that you make a contribution. Again, we're looking for fans of the Culture Show and to appreciate this kind of programming. And we are encouraging you to sign up as a sustaining member at $5 a month. So 10 people, but you know what? How about a couple fans? How about 2 fans right now in these next couple of minutes to get some momentum going? gbhnews.org, 888-897 888-897-9424.
And enjoy the outdoors and show you're a proud supporter of GBH when you do. Support GBH at $5 a month, and we're going to send you a GBH knit hat. It is a beautiful hat. This is a $5 Friday only offer here, so you want to get that call started, get in on this great, great hat. 888-897-9424, or go online, gbhnews.org.
And today it is $5 Friday, and this is the time that we ask you to become a sustaining member of GBH with your ongoing monthly gift of $5 a month. And it's easy to do, and you think about the things that you spend $5 a month on, maybe a one-way ride on the T, chapstick, think of all the things you don't even think about. Cost less than $5. So become a sustaining member here on $5 Friday, gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Horwick III. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review, which includes some sheer audacity. Kanye West's wife, Bianca Censori, left nothing to the imagination when she walked the Grammys' red carpet Sunday night. So again, if you're streaming online right now or here at the library, we're going to be posting some modified pictures of what happened. But I think a lot of people have seen these where Bianca Censori arrived with Kanye West on the red carpet. She was wearing a black coat. It seemed like a black fur coat. Yes. And then she dropped the coat and she was wearing this dress, which is a sheer dress, which is basically her naked on the red carpet. And so this created a lot of conversation this week. They left immediately. Some people argued that they were kicked out, but no, Kanye West said that they were leaving of their own volition, essentially making a statement. And then this turned into a whole conversation about whether he's controlling her, crafting her image, making her take these clothes off. She was one of the last times she was seen publicly, she was strolling through Italy holding hotel pillows over her chest. So she's somebody who is very provocative with the dress or without the dress.
First, let me give a little psychobabble off the top. Kanye, please stop trying to get Kim's attention, okay? That's what this is about. This was all for show. And what I deeply resent is his using his wife, and some people refer to her as former wife, so I don't know what that's about, as some kind of object for him to just display any way he wants to. Now, there's lots of folks who say she obviously agreed to it or whatever. Did she? I don't know. I don't know what's happening here. We need some good psychologists.
There was a whole series of tweets that he has put out in the last day or whatever, where he made it clear that he has, quote, dominion over his wife.
Yeah, well, he's, I won't go into what he is. But there she is with what is clearly naked. I mean,
clearly.
It's there's, what's the point of that? I'm just not understanding what she's trying to say or he's trying to say at this point. I just don't get it.
I think it's being provided. In some ways, this is inevitable, right? Because the idea that somebody is going to, somebody is eventually going to go all the way with all of the dresses that have been out there, and people are like, this one's a little too revealing. This one's a little, oh my gosh, that one's even more revealing. Oh my gosh, the next one's even more. Somebody eventually is going to go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to this thing naked, and I'm just going to be like, this is my dress. Like, this was always going to happen. Someone was going to do it.
So we have a progression that we've put together here. So you can go back and you can look at the Marilyn Monroe dress from 1962 when she sang for President Kennedy. A lot of people wondered about that dress. A lot of people, especially with the black and white photographs that emerged after that, wondered if it was actually nude. Of course, it was form-clinging. Next, we can move up to 1974. We've gone a couple weeks without mentioning Cher, but we love to mention Cher now.
You do have our Cher quota that we have
because she had a dress that was designed for her by Bob Mackie. She actually talks about this in her new memoir, which I listened to over the holidays.
holiday break, and this is her version. This was called the naked dress, and she wore this to the Met Gala. It's not that different, except I think you could argue it's a little more artful in how it's, or different kind of art and how it was constructed. And then we move on to the controversy that Rihanna ignited in 2014 when she went to the CFDA Fashion Awards. And this was a sequin dress that was draped over her and obviously left a lot to the imagination. So without, and this is very honest on my part, without knowing anything about Kanye West and his wife and the dynamics, and I'll leave all of that aside, I thought exactly what Edgar thought. This is the evolution of why not do this? We have been clearly moving toward this for decades and decades and decades now, and this is it. I can't really imagine where you go from here.
I just don't think it got the shock value that they thought it would.
Which is interesting about what that says.
Yes, it does say. I think people were like, oh. And particularly since it was Kanye, the best thing I've seen are the people who decide to use AI to flip it. So they put his clothes on her and made him naked. And that was really quite interesting.
Interesting why, Callie? How?
Because he looks horrible. And it really reveals the stupidity of the whole stunt. You know, it's just ridiculous. So I'm just, most people were like, that's Kanye. Maybe it would have gotten more attention if it was someone else. But I think it's who wears it as much as how it is worn.
I mean,
or
that's
not
a good
worn,
point. I mean, it is like we are well past the boy who cried wolf with him, right?
Yes.
Like, you can't do it. Like, he literally cannot engender controversy because he just walks. Like, it's just like everybody's like rolling their eyes. It was Kanye and his wife. Of course, it was Kanye, right?
Right. And so the only question for a lot of us out here is whether or not the Dominion thing is right or not. If he's just being his usual nutty self, or in fact, she's being abused in some way.
Kelly, I think you also just had it. I mean, I remember I heard about it. I looked at it. I thought, oh, yeah, whatever. So that happened. And then people talked about, well, should she be arrested because this violates indecency laws? Because it's technically she's naked in public. And I think so far California has said, no, that's fine. We're going to let that go.
Embedded in this, I would say, is a good thing, right? Because I think we have historically in the United States in particular had a very strange relationship with nudity, which is, by the way, how we all come into the world. Like, it's like okay
Not
to be.
me. I was wearing this very sweater.
A very nice sweater. Some really nice shoes. But you know what I mean? Like,
that's right.
Like, to some extent, kind of in the background here is a little bit of a normalizing of nudity, which I think is probably on the healthier side.
Well, remember the whole David controversy.
Yes.
So here is a statue of David. He's naked. He's supposed to be. And aside from looking at the artwork of his form, folks lost their minds and said, "Oh my God, this is indecent," and blew up. So to your point, that's correct. We do have an issue with nudity. And we don't know what to do with it unless it's on reality TV.
Or in the pages of Playboy magazine, because there was a time when nudity was confined to the pages of magazines only, and that time is back as Playboy revives its print magazine after a 5-year hiatus. So I think it's so interesting. Of course, we program the show. We think about stories that kind of talk to each other, and that's how we put the show together. But it is interesting that these two things would happen in the same week. So, and I had kind of lost track of this, the fact that Playboy magazine, the magazine part of it, no longer existed as of about 5 years ago. It went out of print as we saw this massive migration to digital, but Playboy Enterprises has seen this moment to bring the magazine back, and it'll be the magazine with, the articles, the journalism, with pretty well-known figures, and of course, nude photographs and the centerfold, because if you remember, there was also a time even before the magazine was taken out of print, that they had stopped the nude photo shoots.
That's right.
Stopped the nude photo shoots in Playboy magazine.
Yeah.
But now it's all back. And then I also wonder, I'm throwing a lot of things out there, if this also ties back to Uncle O'Grimacy in that we're going back to the future right now.
Well, I believe we are going back to the future, not in a good way. And I just want to point out that the cover person is Lori Harvey, who's the daughter of Steve Harvey, if people are paying attention, does a lot of reality game shows. And she is the person and she's okay with it. Apparently she has, interestingly enough, become a spokesperson for body positivity, meaning that she feels like she's a very slim person, that other people or we have too much focus on how large people are, and she doesn't agree with that. But this is pretty interesting to see that, she's 28 and they're coming back with us at this time. And I'll be interested to see, is this something that people will pay for? Because, there is the internet. If you really want to see something, go to the internet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm sort of with Jared on. I think of this thematically very much like the Uncle Grimacy thing. And it is in this wider context that it's like the new crop of Star Wars movies and all of the reboots on television, right? Like these brands, and they are brands, which
or they were brands.
They were brands, but the brand, a lot of these established brands, right? The idea of what Playboy was. The brand of Playboy became what it was because it was a cultural moment in time that was captured in a way that was of its time, for its time, and it caused a huge sensation. But it is, to a certain extent, you can't run that back. So the idea of taking that brand in 2025, and now they're saying we're going to take all the stuff that was there, but you can't recapture that and spin it back out again. I mean, I just don't see it happening.
But people are trying, and that's what I think is really interesting, because we were just having a conversation here last week, right after the show. One of our colleagues is really into cassette tapes. We're not talking about vinyl, we're not talking about CDs, but cassette tapes, which I think is really interesting. There's a whole generation now who never had cassette tapes, and there's that physical act of pressing the button or rewinding, and you hear the rewinding. You pick up the Playboy magazine and you're touching it in your hands. We have a whole generation now who didn't have a lot of these tactile experiences.
Sure.
They also know that it was a slower time. Yeah, if we go back to your point, Callie, Back to the Future can be horrible in a lot of ways, but we also recognize the world wasn't moving as fast if we think about other realms of pop culture and whatnot. And what I'm starting to feel is this longing for that, and I think we see it in some of these elements.
Well, I think overall what we're seeing is that there are attempts to get our attention. Kanye's trying to get our attention. His wife is trying to get our attention. Playboy's trying to get our attention. But can you use the old stuff to do it?
Right, and that's kind of my point, right? Do I think that we could stand a little of some of, what I would argue were the best bits of what Playboy was about, right? Like some provocation, a little bit of nudity, a little bit of danger, but also a little bit of intellect, and also interviews with major cultural figures who were great gets. Could we use some property out there that is giving us that? Yes, but do I think because something that we now call Playboy, which has been bought and sold multiple times and is now in the ownership of somebody else and has a brand, quote unquote, to protect, is going to bring that to us? No.
First of all, I think they have to compete with all these other people who can get the great gets, and I don't know that they can.
I agree.
And I think that the thing that, for example, that McDonald's needs to always raise up are the French fries. The French fries are an oldie but goodie. Those are always going to be
core product. It's a core product.
There you go. And that's the identification. Who knows? Who cares if this purple guy has anything to say about the French fries?
I agree. It's chasing ghosts. It feels like It feels like marketing people chasing ghosts.
Exactly.
Or finding the ghosts. Finding the ghosts, which I'm so struck by what's happening right now. Well, coming up, how one organ player is celebrating the father of Baroque music. Don't go away. We'll be right. Bach. This only jokes that you can make on NPR. This is The Culture Show.
GBH. It is 2:37, and this is a time we are asking you to step up and make a contribution to support programs like The Culture Show. And especially today is $5 Friday, where we are encouraging folks to become new members of the radio station, or maybe it's been a while, and just come on in at $5 a month. And you can do that easily at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And big thanks to a fan out in Jamestown, Rhode Island, who's supplied one of possibly the best comments I've seen today. Says, I don't know how to tune my radio in the car, but I told the dealer, set it to 89.7, and I've never changed it, don't need to. I think that is so awesome. And the cool thing about that is you don't always see user error working out for the best, but in this case, it really, really did. Now, if you value hearing the arts and culture on 89.7 as well, you're tuned in right now, I'm willing to bet you do. Show your support today. Give us a call, 888-897-9424, or go online, gbhnews.org.
Hey, we have just about 22 minutes left in the Culture Show, and we need just 7 more contributions, 7 more people to give in the next 22 minutes. And this is, again, today has been going great. $5 Friday has been going awesome. The show support has been amazing, and this is a terrific time to join in, be part of $5 Friday, help to keep on track with your contribution. $7 or 7 more people in the next 22 minutes. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
And yes, indeed, it is $5 Friday, and with an ongoing monthly gift of just $5, we are going to send you something awesome. It is the GBH knit hats, the charcoal gray beanie, really nice looking caps. Got the folding cuff in front with that GBH 89.7 logo embroidered in black. Now, again, hat only available during $5 Friday. That's today, so want to get that call started, 888-897-9424, or go online, gbhnews.org.
And $5 Friday, that's right. And we are encouraging you to become a new member to GBH by giving just $5 a month on the Sustainer plan. And you think about all the things that cost $5 or less, and you don't even give it a second thought. How about a 6-pack of sparkling water? Yeah, even like Polar Water or La Croix. Those are less than $5. You could get a box of beignet mix for less than $5. So, how about pitching $5 towards GBH and supporting programs like The Culture Show? gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
Boston is bursting with talented artists, musicians, and cultural creators, and GBH and The Culture Show are here to showcase their amazing work. From live performances to in-depth interviews, we are committed to bringing you the best of local arts and culture, but we cannot do it alone. We need the financial support of our listeners to help shine a light on our community's incredible talent. That's why we're asking for your contribution right now, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And we hope you'll become a sustaining member here on $5 Friday. It's a reoccurring gift from your bank account or credit card. Just takes a couple minutes to set up, and $5 a month. That's it. And you'll be doing something great by keeping The Culture Show, Boston Public Radio, and all your favorite programs here on GBH. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
And to stay on track right now, we're looking for 5 more people to give. We got about 20 minutes left in this hour, and GBH and NPR play a vital role in delivering trustworthy news that you can rely on. And by giving right now, you help ensure that quality journalism prevails over misinformation. So please make that contribution right now. We need 5 more gifts here, and we got about 20 minutes. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossy and Edgar B. Horwick III. We're listening to Joshua Bell performing on his 1713 Stradivarius because a similar instrument, a 1714 Stradivarius violin, was auctioned by Sotheby's just a little while ago, fetching $11.3 million. This is such a lovely story because this was in the hands of NEC right here in Boston, the New England Conservatory. It was gifted to them by the violin's last owner upon his death, and they were given, they were willed this with the provision that when they wanted to, they could sell it and use all of the funds for student scholarships. And as we mentioned just a couple of hours ago, it was auctioned at Sotheby's for $11.3 million. All that money goes to scholarships.
Well, you just can't say enough about a Stradivarius violin. It's considered just the best. And the best description I've heard from the artists that play it is that it has all these other colors when you play it that the other instruments do not. I want to pause and give a shout out to a novel which uses the Stradivarius as one of the characters, and that's Brendan Slocum's novel called The Violin Conspiracy.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very fun story about a Stradivarius, quote unquote, found in the attic of his grandmother and what happens to it. And along the way, you really get a sense, for those of us who are not classical musician masters, of why this instrument is so important.
Yeah, and one of the things I love, like, you know what is a fun rabbit hole to go down is like people over the years, like right up until today, trying to sort of figure out what it is that like Stradivari did that like made them so good, right? And they, you know, it's like this is everybody from artists to scientists. I mean, there's a guy at like Texas A&M who spent like most of his career doing studies to like identify, well, what are the chemicals and how was he treating his wood? And he had a theory that it was like, well, there was a bunch of worms at that area that was getting wood, so he put certain chemicals in it that made it sound a certain, like it's fantastic. It is a fun rabbit hole to go down. Just like people, I love this because it is one of those things where humans both love. We love when something is great, where it does something that nobody else can do. And then at the same time, we are also like, and now we're going to figure out how to do it ourselves, you know? And I love that.
And the thing that is great about this particular one that's being sold is it was made during the golden age of when Stratovarius was creating violins.
Hitting his stride.
Meaning it's the best of the best of the best.
Yeah.
I mean, all his stuff was good. And this is like, you know, Baked Alaska or something.
Well, and it makes it, they were thinking that this might be the most expensive instrument ever sold, with an estimate going as high as $18 million. It didn't reach that. But what I really appreciate the last time I saw a Stradivarius violin was in a museum under a glass case.
Yeah.
This one was being played by students over the last few years. So they had it in the hands of students, so they actually used it. I love that.
Yeah.
Because this is why these instruments are so extraordinary, that they have survived hundreds of years and can still be played. We don't have any information about who the buyer is, where it's going next. It might go to a museum. It might be in the private hands of a collector. Maybe it'll be accessible to students again. We don't know, but it's just a really lovely story.
It is. I love it.
Well, to mark the 275th birthday of the father of Baroque music, an organ player in Little Rock, Arkansas, is performing all of Johann Sebastian Bach's organ compositions. This is happening every day at lunchtime.
I love this story. I love it. So he's been the music director at this church called, I just lost the name of it. Trinity Episcopal Cathedral outside of Little Rock for 3 years. He's 31 years old. He first heard Bach at 12 years old, and he's been playing the organ since he was 16. Now, I say all that to say that lots of people have played the organ works of Bach, but apparently they're very difficult to play. And so not only has he mastered that, he's very enthusiastic about this. And when you go for the lunchtime concerts, he gives you an explanation, little talk about what's going on so that you're really into it, and he loves it. And I just, even reading about it, I actually would love to go there and hear him play.
You know what, Callie, it's so funny. I had the exact same reaction, which was like, I was like, okay, this is going on for a year. Maybe I will try to figure out a way to get down to Little Rock and do this. And I'll tell you, there is something, this is like one of those stories where it's like, I didn't know I needed this until I read this story, and I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what we need. And I love it on its face. But I love that this is happening in a church, right? And it's happening in the middle of the day.
It's free.
And it's free. And it's not in New York City.
Right.
And it's not in LA. And it's not in Chicago. And no offense, it's not in Boston. It's in Little Rock, right? So it's this idea, it's a reminder to us in this world that we live in, where I see us increasingly putting each other in these boxes and categories, which are overly simplified. And this, to a certain extent, blasts all those away. And it's a reminder, hey, yeah, there's like an incredible organist at a church in Little Rock, and they can play Bach, and they're doing it for everyone for free.
On the organ. And by the way, his name is Colin McKnight, if we didn't say that. And he maybe got inspired by Paul Jacobs, who performed an 18-hour nonstop concert on the 250th anniversary in 2000. And he taught McKnight. So, full circle.
And do you know where he was taught? This Colin McKnight, he was taught right here at the Walnut Hill School.
No kidding.
For the Arts in Natick, Massachusetts, which is a renowned school for the arts. He went from there to Juilliard and now to Little Rock to play these. And while we're talking about this, we should also just give a quick shout out to Music Worcester, which has its own 11-year project to play all of the compositions, organ and otherwise, of Bach. It'll end in 2035, the 350th anniversary of his birth. It started last year, and this years-long effort, which is really, really extraordinary.
I love that.
We're going to move on from here. So, Edgar, Callie and I heard that there was a big game this weekend.
It is an American football match, a championship game of sorts,
Yes.
a super game, you might say, the Super Bowl.
good.
When Alan Cumming was on the show the other day, I asked him, "Are you watching the Super Bowl?" He gave me this befuddled look of, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, some of us just don't care.
But we decided that there are elements we do care about. So each of us has picked one. I guess, Edgar, well, we should probably start with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, aside from the fact, full disclosure, what I'm actually excited about is the game. I happen to like football. I am a Philadelphia Eagles fan, which I come by honestly, born and raised in Philadelphia, so there's a reason for it. Yes, but no, I mean, obviously one of the things that has vaulted the Super Bowl into the stratosphere beyond just being a football game is that there are a lot of performances around it. We got a big halftime show. It's going to be Kendrick Lamar, fresh off of a couple of Grammy victories. SZA is going to be performing with him. There's a lot of people wondering about is Not Like Us, which is a big song. Is he going to perform it? There's still a lawsuit out there from Drake about it. It's this diss track that kicked off this whole thing with him and Drake. So a lot of question marks. Is he really going to play that show or not? But also let's not forget there's a bunch of stuff that happens before, which is great. John Baptiste, who's from all of them from New Orleans. John Baptiste doing the national anthem, which is great. Ledisi is doing Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is, if you don't know, a lot of people refer to it as the Black national anthem. The NFL has been since 2021 doing this song as well before the Super Bowl, which is great. And then I'm really excited for America the Beautiful because Trombone Shorty, who I love from New Orleans, is going to be playing as well. Also, don't forget, sports betting is a big part of this. You can bet on all kinds of music stuff as well, including the over-under on the rendition of the national anthem will be over under 120 seconds.
Trombone Shorty is from back of
lots
town,
of performances
don't you know, baby?
to look forward to.
As they say in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So, Kelly, even you found something to be really excited about with the Super Bowl.
I'm very excited about Taj Williams, known as Queen Taj Williams. She's 26 years old. Her day job is as a cybersecurity engineer for Microsoft. But this year, she has created the theme and logo for the Super Bowl. Now, if you're here or you're watching us online, you can see the picture of it, which is very colorful. And it has a sort of short chartreuse green and a pink background, and they look like drawings, etchings, and they are in fact that. This is the beadwork, very intricate beadwork that she did, because she's part of what is known as the Black masking culture in New Orleans. Some people refer to it as the Mardi Gras Indians. They're very much a part of Mardi Gras. If you've ever been to Mardi Gras, you'll see them dressed up very extensively with feathers and beads. And so she's taken this intricate beading and made the foundational for this. She's the first artist to get the theme and logo at the same time. Also, it's the first time, I believe, that the Super Bowl has, instead of doing some generic thing, turned to a local artist to represent this. And as you know, New Orleans is a place of, it's just a cultural gumbo, one of the local dishes, of cultural traditions. And so this is just exhibited by this and more, and she's fabulous.
Also, importantly, it adheres to another cultural phenomenon, which is the increasing number of people who believe that the NFL is completely rigged and scripted.
Yes.
And one of the theories is, this because look at that Super Bowl logo has red in it for the Chiefs and green in it for the Eagles. They've known the whole time who was going to play in the big game.
Well, could be, but
Definitely
she got the call in February 2024, so she's been working on this since then.
Well, I'm cheating a little bit because my Super Bowl pick is really what happens in between. We have lots of great commercials to look forward to this year. By the way, did you know that the commercials cost between $10 and $12 million and can cost up to $20 million? And the actors who play in these commercials, guess how much they make?
How much?
Guess.
They have to do it for free.
No.
Do they make a lot or a little?
I have
between
no idea.
$3 to $5 million.
Whoa!
That's how much they get for appearing in the commercials. Wow. Unless it's a cameo reel, Martha Stewart will pop up in an ad, for instance, and she's going to this weekend. Yeah, they get a lot of money.
So she gets $1 million for that, I guess.
Or something like that. I'm sure she's got a good contract.
I want to get myself in a Super Bowl.
Me too.
Exactly. Well, Matt Damon got himself into a Super Bowl commercial.
Well, he needs the money.
This one, let's. You know what? We don't have a little time to play this. But, I love what he and Ben Affleck have done because, of course, Ben Affleck has the Dunkin' commercial. Matt Damon has his Stella Artois commercial with David Beckham, and they are doing this as part of Artist Equity, the collaboration they formed to give lots of filmmakers a hand in making films.
Oh, one last Super Bowl shout out. H.O. Zimin, which is a local company in Lynn. I did a story about them a few years ago. They do the program for the Super Bowl every year. It's very cool. If you've ever driven on the Lynnway, you would have passed by this place and never have known it, just like in an office park there. But they are the people who make the Super Bowl program.
So that theme and logo is on there. there.
That will be on there. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
By the way, it's totally scripted. Anyway, that's all it is for this edition of The Culture Show. Tune in to Monday for writer and actor Marianne Leone on her latest book about how rescue dogs rescued her in a time of grief. Today, as part of Community Canvas, you'll find the work of artist Christy Rinklin on our digital mural. Photography and painting fuel the Holy Cross professor's process as she explores notions of memory and impermanence. Thanks today to the BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, Pat Lally, and Olivia Corcio. Thanks to everyone who came down to be with us here at the library today. Our friends from Newport Mansions, we love seeing you here today and appreciate your visit. Also thanks to the Lennox Hotel, the Newsfeed Cafe. I'm Jared Bowen. Be sure to spend time with your dear old Uncle Grimacy and have an art-filled weekend.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library!
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund.
Brahms' Third Symphony, that's the Cleveland Orchestra and conductor George Zell.
Support for WCRB comes from you and Bryant University, committed to educating and inspiring students to excel as innovative leaders with real, world-ready 21st century skills, prepared to make a difference around the world. Learn more at bryant.edu.
Classical Radio Boston is WCRB-FM 99.5 HD1 Lowell, Boston, WGBH-FM HD2 Boston, WCAI-FM HD2 Woods Hole, WJMF-FM HD1 Smithfield, Providence, and at classical.org.
Just about 3 o'clock, here's Maurice Steger and his ensemble.